Donald Trump has ended all of the DEI programs. He has nuked all of the diversity employees, the DEI employees in the federal government. Now, he hasn't fired them. I say nuked because they've been put on paid leave, which kind of irks me, but at least they're not there anymore. What we're seeing now is they're trying to rename and hide these staffers across federal agencies. I hope Trump is able to get through this and figure out. I mean, this is malevolent. There's one instance, we have the tweet where a post, there's a chief diversity officer who gets renamed a senior officer because they're trying to protect people's jobs. And that is in defiance of executive order, which is insane. So we got that story, of course. And here's a big one. Deportations have begun, and the DOJ will investigate and prosecute any local officials who obstruct the deportation process. So a lot of stuff going on. We've got the layoffs at CNN. Everyone's laughing about that. And TikTok is reportedly banning Free Palestine. They're claiming they're not, but people are posting videos showing that they have. So maybe it's all just fake news, but we'll break all of this down. It is only the second day, and Donald Trump has done, I guess technically it's the third day. Donald Trump has done many things so far, keeping his promise. Of course, we talked about the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht the other day. So we'll get into all that stuff, and we'll talk about how he is taking back the government. He's also rescinded the executive order creating the equal employment opportunity in federal government, which is crazy because it wasn't a law. It was an executive order. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and buy coffee. I'm willing to bet Ian's got no coffee left. Okay, Ian's graphene dream has 494 bags left. So I don't get it, Ian. You sold 5,350 bags in a month. This time it's been about 2 weeks, and you've sold 1,600 bags already of this coffee.
I think it's a quality product with good branding.
Well, all right. That explains it. Go to castbrew.com, buy coffee. We also have Phil's 2 weeks till Christmas.
Get it.
He's dressed like Santa. And then, of course, if you go to boonieshq.com, my friends, it pains me to say, Step on Sneck and Find Out hasn't sold out yet. I know that should be a good thing, good news for all of you, because this is our top selling board, Step on Sneck and Find Out. But that means we restocked it and y'all haven't bought it fast enough. So I'm kidding. If you want to pick up your Step on Sneck and Find Out board, we do have them back in stock. The 28th Amendment boards are sold out, which is really cool that you guys bought all the chicken skateboards that we made, because we look at that picture of that chicken. If you're not watching this on a video player, you're missing out, because this is the greatest doodle of a chicken ever made. Shout out to Jessica. Also, don't forget, go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly. This week, we've had 3 episodes of the Green Room Uncensored Members Only show. Yesterday's was kind of nuts with Dominic Tarczynski. He's a European member of parliament. He's from Poland. He's talking about what Poland does to keep their country safe. And I highly recommend it, and you'll understand why it's uncensored. And today we sat down with Angela McArdle and talked about the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht, her meeting with Donald Trump, and we get into the weeds on all of that stuff and a bit about the libertarian philosophy. So that'll be up today at some point. Become a member to watch that. You'll also get access to our uncensored, our uncensored show Monday through Thursday, but also our Discord server. So smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know, and joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we got Matt Walsh.
Hey, good to be here. Good that I didn't have to trek through the wilderness to find you this time. So right down the street from us. I will say that I don't want to get into a big argument right off the bat, but your 28th Amendment, I had declared a different 28th Amendment. So we've got a bit of a Mine was summary execution for people who ditch their shopping carts. So you've got the chicken thing. We got to figure that out.
We can discuss the shopping carts later. I totally agree with you about that. Society is better the more people that return their shopping carts.
I've been on that for years.
I didn't know that, but I completely agree with you.
The Aldi situation, we put the quarter in the cart, you have to put it back.
No. A functioning society does not need financial incentives to do the right thing.
So I prefer punishment.
All right, I'm on board with it. I'm on board with it.
Yeah.
So my 20th Amendment is the right to keep bear and breed chickens. So it's a bit more wholesome, but okay. We'll have the debate. Angela McArdle's also hanging out.
Thanks for having me back.
Right on. Who are you? What do you do?
Oh, I'm the chair of the National Libertarian Party, the broker of deals, freer of peoples.
Freer of peoples. That's good. And you are largely responsible for the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht, which has every libertarian throwing their hat in the air and cheering.
That is correct. Super excited about that. Still lobbying for a few other people, including Roger Ver.
Right on.
Nice.
That's good. That's cool. Shane's hanging out.
What's up? Congrats, Angela.
Thank you
that.
very
That's
much.
amazing. We were in the room at the Libertarian Convention when Trump made that promise. So it's awesome to see him fulfill it. I am Shane Cashman, author and host of Inverted World Live every Sunday at 6. What's up?
Oh, I'm happy to see both you guys. It's Angela. Congrats on everything, man. Since last I saw you and having the baby and everything, rock and roll, baby. And Matt, nice. I haven't seen you since the documentary "Am I Racist" went. So good to see you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It was great. Man. I haven't actually seen the documentary yet, but every time I see clips, I'm like I loved Borat. I was crying in tears in the theater.
The fight scene is just so good.
I hear a lot. Okay, anyway, but Angela, what's your Twitter account? Because I'm about to tweet this out.
It's Angela for LNC Chair.
Thank you. All right. Phil Labonte.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's go.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The story from USA Today. Trump rolls back DEI across the federal government. Is your workplace next? I love this because this has been the new narrative. After Trump basically said all DEI employees, not like if you are working in these departments, you are now on leave. Your office is hereby closed. And now the narrative has become, is he going to bring this to the private sector? I don't know that the president has the authority to do that. You know, Joe Biden famously tried to mandate vaccines for everybody. I think he was trying to go through OSHA or something. Was that what it was?
It was OSHA.
Trump, I think, may actually be able to do something on this very simply by instructing the appropriate law enforcement to enforce the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
That is, any private business that utilizes protected classes in their hiring will be in violation of the law, and that means DEI is de facto gone.
I mean, DEI is totally illegal. Like, if you look at the laws on the books, discriminating based on any immutable characteristic is illegal in the United States. The fact that it has been around this long is a testament to the fact that, honestly, the left has been so powerful in the United States, even though they'll scream and cry about how they're marginalized, etc. That has been the status quo for the better part of 2 decades, probably the better part of the past 40 or 50 years.
California has it codified in state law. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there, the battle of Trump v. Newsom.
This is what you need. You need, because the thing with executive orders, of course, is, and the worry is that, I mean, they're great in this case, but then the next guy can come in, the next Democrat can come in and just reverse everything just as quickly as Trump is wiping out whatever Biden did. The same could happen to him. And that's why you need Congress to come in behind these executive orders and codify them into law so that it's not quite so easy to just wipe them out from existence. And that can be done easily with this DEI stuff. And although it is, to both of your points, it is already very much illegal to do this. This is racial profiling, racial discrimination. You could still have could and should have a federal law that bans this explicitly on the basis that it's a human rights violation because you're discriminating against people based on their race.
He got rid of affirmative action in contracting for the federal government too.
Good.
Yeah, that stuff should be illegal.
Yeah.
It's remarkable to me that in the 60s, we're like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have this discrimination stuff. And then shortly thereafter, they said, maybe we should bring it right back on top of the existing law banning it.
The thing about discrimination is if you say people of that kind can't do this, that's discrimination. But also people of that kind get this. That's also discrimination. It's positive discrimination. So it goes both ways.
And I think it's fascinating too, because you were right that Trump has already done more in 2-3 days than Biden did in 4 years. But Trump has also arguably done more in 2 or 3 days than he himself did.
I think so.
In 4 years in his first term. And the difference is, there's of course a lot has changed, and he's learned a lot from the first term. He's got a much better team. But the other thing too is that, and this was always the irony of him being labeled a dictator, is that in his first term he was the opposite of it. In fact, if anything, he had the opposite. He erred too much in the opposite direction. Absolutely. In that he was very shy about wielding his executive power. This time around, he realizes that, hey, I have this power, I can use it. And so I'm going to.
It was to the point where it was a meme. People on the right were saying, please give us the Trump that the left swears that he is. Give us the authoritarian Trump that the left thinks he is.
But when you say Trump did more in 2 days than Biden did in his entire presidency, the issue I take with that statement is that Biden was effectively rolling backwards in his wheelchair down a hill, and Trump is actually climbing the hill. You know what I mean? So I would argue Biden did a whole lot to damage and burn this country down.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. Trump did more in 2 days to help the country Joe Biden did literally nothing. What ATM fees was a proposal of his.
Yeah,
that
what
was the
is
only
it? There's got to
positive
be
thing.
one nice thing, at least one nice thing.
Yeah, the ATM fees.
ATM fees.
He paid off my student loans. I didn't ask. I didn't sign up for anything. I just got some stupid check in the mail.
Did they
That's
actually
not
You paid
get-
your loans for 20 years, so you
paid
get
off?
all your money back, and now you get to pay for it as a taxpayer. I mean,
I thought
egregious.
it was reversed.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Yep, they turned to zero.
But
I was like, thanks for the 11 grand, dude.
Wow.
That's not a nice thing.
No, it wasn't. But he
You know,
did
it's
it.
like
Not to everyone else.
what's
I don't know how to rectify it.
I think people need to understand that Robin Hood wasn't stealing from the rich to give to the poor. He was stealing from the
the
government.
king.
Yeah. Hey, you
Right.
can-
It was the sheriff who was collecting all the taxes. And so in this instance, what Ian is referring to is quite literally the government stealing from the poor to give to the highest income earners in the
disgusting.
country.
If you want to,
Yeah.
if you want to correct it, the IRS will accept money. You
I can just send him a check.
Just send,
Oh,
You
yeah.
can just send
Oh,
them the
you know.
check.
Shane, on the Green Show earlier, you were saying that Trump wouldn't. Plus, this I've heard this sentiment online too. Is that if he had gotten to be president in 2020, he wouldn't have had this zeal. He wouldn't have had this.
I saw Andy No say that.
Oh, yeah,
He had
for
to go
sure.
through the trials and tribulations of the last 4 years, I think, to get the Trump we got the last 2 days.
I think
It's-
that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have had the same team behind him either.
Yeah, he
Or
has a
the
new
Senate or Congress. I mean, come on.
It's almost as if he went through divine trials
Yes,
to
absolutely.
earn and understand his place, narrowly avoiding death, but
Yes.
by the turn of his head that made him a forceful president. And we've only seen a couple days.
That's why
It
his
was
portrait
a-
looks the way it does.
I think it's a really good representation of the hero's journey. And I don't necessarily think that Donald Trump is coming in to save every single person in the country, but I do think he's coming to redeem the boomer generation. I think that's a big part of this is he's like, we are going to fix a lot of the things that the boomers did to wreck the country.
You know, what matters to me a lot is the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht.
Yes.
And I know for libertarians, it's largely about the core issues of the case. To me, those matter. But what makes me a bit more emotional here is that Donald Trump, of all the things he promised, the DEI firings, these people are in his way. Trump has an agenda. He wants to secure the border. He's got a mission that he believes in. And he's going to fire these people, not just because he promised to do it, but he promised to do it because these are the people who obstructed him and wronged him. He already got the libertarian vote. He already won. He's not running for office again. So what does he really benefit by taking the political risk of making this move to keep his word and pardon Ross Ulbricht? Well, he offered his word.
Yeah.
And what I see for America is Barack Obama made promises not kept. Wars, expansion. George W. Bush, wars and expansion.
Yep.
And Joe Biden, wars and expansion. And Donald Trump said, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. He had like a statement on this. They asked him and he said, I don't really care about the guy, but I promised I'd do it, so I did. And that matters. That matters for the spirit of this country and what young people are going to see in their president. I said, I'll do it, and I did.
That's why I would also, on the pardon point, I mean, his first 3 days, who could complain? He's done a lot. But we should also mention that there's been, in the pardoning, there's been one omission that I very much hope is that this is coming soon, which is the pro-lifers who are sitting.
Yes.
That's right.
Who are sitting in federal prison right now. Some of them are already out, but they're on probation, and they've got this on the record. Some are actually in federal prison right now.
Has he made promises to pardon them as well?
Yeah, he has.
Okay.
And for my money, I mean, what happened to the J6ers, we all know, was outrageous political persecution. What happened to these pro-lifers is the worst of all. This is the worst political
Absolutely.
persecution that we've seen in modern history, in my
100%.
opinion.
What is it?
Well, the Biden administration decided, that they were going to enforce the so-called FACE Act. You know what that is?
I've heard of it like a couple years ago or something.
Yeah, it's the Freedom of Access to Clinics entrances. So this is a 90s era law that made it a federal crime to basically come within X number of feet of the entrance of an abortion clinic if you're a protester and you're blocking, the entrance. But the thing is that that law already had a million problems because you're treating these clinics like this special category of building and giving them the kinds of protections you don't give any other building. But then also this law supposedly offered the same protections to pregnancy resource centers, to crisis pregnancy centers, to pro-life centers. So that was their way of dealing with the inequality of the law. They said, okay, well, this will also apply to pro-life centers. Well, the problem is that they don't enforce that. And then under the Biden administration, you had, these pro-abortion radicals that were literally setting pregnancy centers, pro-life pregnancy centers on fire. And there was no attempt to track these people down at all. And instead, they decided to go after these pro-lifers, some of whom, there was a case in Tennessee where They were sitting, I believe, outside the entrance of the abortion clinic and praying. No violence occurred. They never touched anyone. They didn't commit any violent act at all. They weren't even shouting at anybody. They were just sitting there praying. And some of these are like elderly women. And the Biden administration comes along and charges them with federal crimes and throws them in federal prison for it.
Unconscionable.
I don't think they were even actually physically obstructing anyone from entering, other than just being in space. You'd have to walk around.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just have to walk around them. They weren't even,
it's not.
It wasn't like chaining themselves to the door or something.
It's not like Black Bloc where they are locking elbows and blocking you from moving.
And that's why I say in any other context, like if they had done that outside of a Home Depot, at worst, they get loitering charge, a misdemeanor. It only is a federal crime because the federal government has decided to treat abortion clinics like these sacred temples, which is how the left views it.
Because they are, in their opinion.
There were some
town.
protesters who were inside the lobby of an abortion clinic, and I think they were praying, and they were instructed, you have to leave or else, and they got charged under this as well, which should just be a trespass slap on the wrist.
Right.
That should be a trespassing charge.
Do we know
move on
who's
with your life.
advocating for them right now?
I mean, there's,
Get pardons?
Yeah, there's been there are many pro-life organizations that have been advocating, and by the way, Trump has said that he's going to pardon them. So I'm not. There's no indication that he's just going to ignore them and betray them. I'm not claiming this is some great betrayal. Maybe he's waiting. The March for Life is on Friday. Maybe that'll be the time.
That'd be a
great time to do it.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it, but the trade-off is he's got to pardon Joe Biden. Because Joe's not going down for any crimes anyway. He's done. He's going out. He's chilling. Might as well.
I mean, I don't know if
Ian
I call
has
that
just offended everyone.
Okay, no. I'm not offended.
Why is it a trade-off?
Why Joe?
Because it kind of also indicates he's done something wrong, which is cool.
It's a little left field, but I think if he were to do that
That's
and
Ian's
say,
specialty.
you did a lot of terrible, I think he should pardon him for specific crimes.
Actually,
I think that would be
you know what,
more
Ian?
fun.
I think you're right. Actually,
I saw it on Twitter. It's not my idea.
But I'll say why. I think Joe Biden is an awful person who has committed a lot of crimes.
Yeah.
And you look at the crime family, 10% for the big guy, the Burisma scandal, but he is very old and unaware of his surroundings. If Trump were to issue the pardon, acting very magnanimous, it would also require Biden to make an admission of guilt for the things that he did that Trump would pardon him for.
And then,
and we're not going to put him in prison. I mean, he's 80 something.
And Massey was saying last night that if you bring these people before Congress now, like Anthony Fauci, and you ask him, like, why did you lie about gain of function? You said there was none when there was. And if he still lies, then they can hit him even after the pardon. Now they can hit him again for perjury. So he's got to kind of admit, like, this is why I lied to the public.
Ian, I love the sentiment, but Joe Biden needs continued ridicule in my mind.
But that's what the pardon is.
Pardoning Fauci. I don't know.
But
I can't get on board with that.
I agree that if you pardon him for specific crimes, but pardon him for crimes of corruption, you have to get the exact
He's
crime.
going to be called out on this day in this act. We'll pardon you for it.
If he says, I pardon Joe Biden for the quid pro quo in Ukraine, threatening to withhold congressionally approved loan guarantees. That's illegal, but he did it. We all know he did, so I pardon him for it.
That would be the first troll pardon.
Right.
Sounds like he's trolling.
I'm
okay. I'm
I
okay
like
with.
troll pardons.
There's a guy who might need a pardon next month, Dr. Eitan Haim. He's a Texas doctor who was a whistleblower at the Texas Children's Hospital.
Yes.
He's at a trial next month. They're trying to put him away for 10 years.
State or federal?
I believe so. They say he's violating HIPAA violations. We should look it up. But that guy needs help.
This one's a bit more controversial. Derek Chauvin. I've seen his name being tossed around. I think you tweeted it, maybe.
There's federal and state charges. Trump absolutely should pardon Chauvin on the federal charges.
There's a lot of evidence that George Floyd had, like fentanyl, norfentanyl, I think it was caffeine, nicotine, and THC in his system, 5 drugs when he died, that it was a heart attack, not an asphyxiation.
And he didn't get a fair trial. There's no way he got a fair trial.
I was going to say, I don't care about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't care about the drugs. I don't care about whatever. He didn't have a fair trial.
Just on the trial alone, I think that's if this is all about undoing the weaponization of the justice system, it should be done on the trial.
Let's jump to this next story. It's part of the first one, but it's interesting. Pop Crave has the tweet saying Donald Trump has revoked the Equal Employment Opportunity Act of 1965. The order prohibited discrimination in hiring and employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. We have this in the right here. This is the executive order ending illegal discrimination and restoring merit-based opportunity. And you can see, while this does cover all the DEI stuff, it includes Executive Order 11246 of September 24th, 1965 equal employment opportunity is hereby revoked. For 90 days from this date, from the date of this order, federal contractors may continue to comply with the regulatory scheme in effect on January 20th, 2025. So what they say over here basically it says, on September 24th, 1965, Lyndon Johnson issued Executive Order 11246, prohibiting employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, or national origin by those organizations receiving federal contracts and subcontracts. In 1967, Johnson amended the order to include the sex on the list of attributes. It also requires federal contractors to take affirmative action to promote the full realization of equal opportunity for women and minorities. So this is basically the end of affirmative action in the federal government. It only extends to the federal government. I did not realize that was just an executive order. I thought that was a law. Trump just said, nah, we out.
Done.
Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable.
That's right?
I mean,
Brass balls.
you know what? So this is a thought that I had. It's a question. I don't really know the answer to it. But when you look at all these things that Trump's doing, and he's killing DEI in federal government, he's killing gender ideology in the federal government, those two things in particular, I was expecting a nuclear explosion of rage, a full-on left-wing meltdown, protests in the street and everything over this. And we're not quite, now, of course, the left is upset, the media is upset about it, but we're not quite seeing the level of rage that I was expecting. And I'm wondering why that is. One theory is Chris Rufo he tweeted something earlier about how the big tech companies, according to people he's talking to, his reporting, that talking to people at big tech companies, they're going to comply with this getting rid of DEI. And according to him, there's kind of actually a sense of relief that they don't have to pretend to care about this anymore. Yeah. And they can just get back to hiring people that are good at doing their job. So I wonder if for some on the left, if maybe that applies more broadly, and that there's some on the left anyway who they're a little bit relieved to be done with this stuff because they never really believed in it. And the idea that they had to get up in arms because, a man wants access to the women's changing room. And so now it's like they don't have to pretend to care about that anymore. So is there a slight sense of relief among some on the left?
I agree.
We're liberators now for them.
Right.
I agree at the institutional level for some of these companies. They're thinking like, we were getting these calls from the Biden administration. They were telling us we had to do these things, and that's there. But the question of where is the day of rage people on the streets? Here's a couple potentials. One, it's really cold out. And so with the polar vortex coming in, it was snowing in Louisiana. It was snowing in
Florida.
Yeah.
It's snowing in Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the apocalypse for them.
That was wild.
So it's really cold. And the truth is, when a light drizzle happens, the protesters don't go outside. So it could be that maybe in the next few months, we'll start to see Antifa come out in the streets. There were some protests in Washington. They attacked a TPUSA event and they smashed a window, but it was relatively small. I wonder, however, though, with Trump winning the popular mandate, and did you guys see this? For the first time, Trump's aggregate favorability has been favorable.
Nice.
So the first was in December by like 0.2. Now it's 0.3. In his political career, Trump is now slightly favorable. I wonder if, the thing about Antifa and these far leftists is that they're always a fringe minority of violent groups, and they rely on the mass of normie general liberal disdain.
Yes.
So if 1,000 people come out to protest, and their intention is to wave little American flags and pride flags or whatever, Antifa goes into those groups and uses that as cover to be violent, causing chaos. But if most of those people don't want to protest for these things anymore, Antifa has no cover. It may be the left is very mad, but they were never very, very powerful to begin with.
I think they're agitators and they get people riled up. And I think the normies and the people in the middle are just fatigued and they're over it. Yeah. Wokeism is a sad, it makes people sad. It's a bad vibe. Mm-hmm. And this whole election has been a vibe check. And people are like, you know what? I think I want to be happy and not always be scolding the sad looking white dude in the cubicle next to me.
We were talking earlier about that. The vibe, the vibe change, the era of America is good again.
It's a vibe shift.
It's really tangible. And I think that it's something that a lot of people feel nowadays. People are tired of looking at the United States, which is, I don't care. I have no problem saying this. I don't care what anyone says. The United States has been an aggregate good for the world. even if only because the U.S. keeps the seas open for trade, it has been an aggregate good for the entire world. And most people in the United States want to believe that the country they're from, the United States, is a good place full of good people and has good intentions. And with the left being so ascendant for the past possibly 20 years, particularly since the Gulf War with the Bush War, I think people are tired of feeling like the United States is bad, and they're ready for some optimism and some belief that the country still is a place that does good things. And if you look at how many illegal aliens have come to the United States in the past 4 years, that says something about the rest of the world and the United States in comparison.
I'm curious what's going to happen with colleges, because like what Matt's saying with the tech world, they're being liberated. I feel like the colleges they're recalibrating to get crazier.
Well, so Elon tweeted something that when you look at the appearance of certain words in academic journals, I think it was journals, you can see this massive spike of all these woke terminologies of phobias and whatnot. And then in the past year, it's started to decline.
Oh, nice.
Interesting.
So we may see some recoiling.
When I was a professor and applying for other professor jobs, all the applications at the bottom, they were saying they're hiring all these people except white guys, straight white guys.
Yep.
I'm curious how this is going to affect that, if it's going to make them worse.
Trump should issue an executive order that, these universities, they receive federal funding.
Yes.
He should instruct the DOJ to go after anyone for violating the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That DEI stuff is illegal. It's always been illegal.
Yeah, it's a disease in the colleges.
Let me show you this tweet from Wokeness that's in line with this. Is interesting. The ATF was just caught rebranding their chief diversity officer to, he wrote chief officer, but it's senior officer. Take a look at this. On 1/20/2025, Lisa Boykin of the ATF, the chief diversity officer. 1 day later, she's a senior executive, office of the director.
Get her out.
This is what they've been doing. So we heard the FBI had preemptively ended their DEI department. What they really did was they reassigned all of those employees all over to the FBI. They're trying to hide their ideologue Marxist staff.
West Point got in trouble for doing it. They were getting sued. They rebranded the DEI department, and they were just doing it under a different name.
They got to make sure that we have people of all different race, creed, and color burning down the next Waco. I think it's really important to them.
I hope that Trump and his administration understand that this is not over on day one, and that when he signs that executive order saying DEI is over, they say, we're not DEI, we're the Equal Employment Accessibility Department. That's another name they're using now. The Equal Employment and Accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, the left is very good at rebranding. Like they have an idea, it's really unpopular. It becomes even more unpopular, and then they rebrand the idea, and then they get a second life out of that idea because they rebranded it. So that is what you have to look out for, which is why firing, you're also going to have to fire the people at the top of these agencies and departments, and then install people who are not motivated to go and find a way to recreate.
Like how the Department of War became the Department of Defense.
Yeah, to your point, Matt, the whole left, like about the left rebranding, that's what the whole woke movement is. When it stopped being functional for the power dynamic to go from the working class to from the proletariat to the bourgeoisie, from the working class to the property, then people like Herbert Marcuse had to go ahead and find new people with the revolutionary energy. I think it was in One Dimensional Man, he was talking about how because capitalism delivers the goods, he said, and he came right out and he said that because capitalism delivers a good life for people, they no longer, the working class no longer has the revolutionary energy. And so he specifically said that he was going to have to go to the ghettos, and you're going to have to find, essentially turn it from working class versus the proletariat to race-based
race, gender, the whole thing.
Exactly. And so it's just a repackaging of the same garbage that the left's been selling for 150 years or whatever.
Well, see it in the corporate sector too. Monsanto sold to Bayer. Like they were getting trashed in 2010, 2011, and then all of a sudden I don't know how it happened, but no more Monsanto. I mean, it still exists, but it's Bayer now. Bayer. So
rebranding is the way you do it, man. You can keep the same infrastructure going, but just give it a different name and then hope people forget about it.
The vaccines change their names.
Well, that's that. Once again, that's the strategy of when you make a product that no one likes. Actually, who's okay? I shouldn't go there. There's a pop star who had put out a bunch of music. I'm not going to say her name, and everyone hated it. She rebranded and changed her name to a fake name,
Yes.
and now she is famous.
She is very famous and loved.
Yeah.
She's awesome, right? Can I say who it is?
Who is it?
Yeah, I wanted to know who.
Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
What was her name?
Awesome.
What was
I
her
love
name
Lana Del
before?
Rey.
I don't know what her name was before.
Wow.
I forget.
I don't care.
But that's all you got to do. You go to marketing
Just
firm
change
and
your
they say
name.
change your name
A
and
fake name?
Your name
like a
didn't
fake
fit.
sounding name?
Yeah, with your sad like goth girl
It
pop
worked.
music.
Listen,
It worked.
Yep.
listen. For everyone out there that's curious, the days of Taylor Swift are over. It is now the era of Lana Del Rey.
I like it. I like
Let's
it.
I'm into it.
Let's jump to this next story from Fox News. They say DOJ to investigate state or local officials who obstruct immigration enforcement. Memo. Trump DOJ wants federal prosecutors across the country to investigate sanctuary city officials who obstruct immigration enforcement.
Okay.
This is fantastic.
What does it mean? I want to pull their funding. I want to see a real.
I mean, you're a
standoff
libertarian.
Financially. I want to just pull the funding.
Well, I'm okay with that too. But what this says to me is it's illegal to aid and abet criminals. And California is in violation of federal law. And the people who aid and abet the criminals should be charged in whatever capacity we have codified laws.
Are we
going
going to do that? Are we going to start arresting governors and mayors?
I mean, I'm getting a little excited. Yeah. What is Michael Malice's T-shirt? Governors for Gitmo.
Gitmo.
I think normally I would say if the state made a choice, interstate, just leave it to the state, unless it's like a horribly egregious moral, dilemma. But because these people cross state lines to get there,
That's the problem.
Fair enough. But and also the United States is charged with protecting the borders, first of all. And second of all, the United States also has like the supremacy clause. Laws that are made by the United States take supremacy over state laws. So when the United States says it is illegal to enter the United States without proper documentation, that's a law that the whole country has to abide by.
I don't necessarily know that you arrest a governor, but you pull funding from California.
Pull that funding. They have so much money and they brag about how much better they are. We have so much money. We have so much industry. Put your money where your mouth is.
I don't think we're going to end up arresting governors, but the left has set the precedent here. I mean, they arrested a president, a former president, and tried to put him in prison. So why not? I mean, they've done the most extreme version of that it's possible to do by trying to put a president in prison.
Why do they protect murderers who are here illegally? I understand there's sob stories. There's people who bring their kids across. You're 11 years
justice.
old. Why are we protecting murderers?
It's called restorative
There was
justice.
also, 154 Democrats voted not to deport illegal immigrants
But
who are
aren't
accused of sex
legal
crimes.
murderers also bad? Like murder bad. This is like such a very simple.
We had Ro Khanna on, and he voted against the Laken Riley Act. And he said his concern was that it allows the deportation of someone just for being arrested. And, we didn't really get into it, but I'd like to say to him, at least now, but they're here illegally.
Right.
So that's what we do when this is the crazy thing. Like the argument is the Laken Riley Act is anyone here unlawfully who also commits these crimes, burglary, theft, or whatever. If you are arrested, then they're to be detained by Homeland Security and deported. And his argument is, but they've not been tried. They've only been arrested. We're not deporting them for committing burglary. We're deporting them because we've arrested them. They are in violation of the law already, and we deport people here illegally. That's it.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's
there you go.
And to your question about why would you protect murderers? But part of it is on the left. It's like they're not, and we've seen this. They don't get very angry about violent crime.
It's
they're not
crazy.
Because and the reason for that is that I mean we had this notion. You're going back, even when I was a kid, we heard about you don't hear the term very often anymore. A bleeding heart liberal.
Yeah.
And the idea was that if you're on the left, your problem is that you're overflowing with too much compassion. You're too sensitive. And then we got to the sensitive snowflake thing but that was never true. It's actually on the left. They are cruelly indifferent, in fact, to suffering. And so when they hear about a violent murderer, they don't feel the innate rage and anger that everyone at this table feels because they just don't care that much. And then that's why their compassion for criminals, it's a very cheap compassion because it is they could talk about forgiveness and let them be rehabilitated. Well, it's because you don't actually care. You're not actually angry about what they did.
Yep.
Wanting to harshly punish criminals is that comes from a place of love and a thirst for justice that I think they just don't.
Most modern leftists don't value life.
I think,
and they're
they
nihilists.
hate humanity.
And they'll stand on dead bodies to promote whatever they want.
Why is it just like a disassociative, like it hasn't happened to me, so it doesn't sound that bad from a distance?
I'd like to point out an example that Phil had tweeted before, where they show results of a study that found that conservatives tend to have compassion for their friends and their family and the people around them, and Democrats and liberals tend to have compassion for inert objects like rocks. I am not being mean. That's the literal language of the study. Democrats have compassion for inert objects. That's what it said. And how do we clarify that into layman's terms? Democrats care about don't blow the mountaintop off that. It's bad. We don't like that mountaintop being damaged. Don't chop down those trees. Conservatives are like, please stop abusing these children.
In Starship Troopers terms, the left loves the bugs.
Yes, that's a really good way to put it.
Well, you know what? It's like this inversion, because the natural human thing is to care the most about the people that are very closest to you.
Yes.
So your spouse, your children, if you're married, those people that you care the most about them in the entire world of all people. You prioritize them. And then from there, you have kind of your extended family, your friends, and then your community, your immediate community, and then your state, and then your country. And then far, far down the line, you care about like the whole nation, all the nations of the world. And that's the natural thing. But on the left, they've kind of demonized that approach because if you look at it that way, then you're small-minded and you're bigoted and you're nativist and you're all these things. And so they flip it around so that their compassion immediately goes to the broadest place.
Furthest away.
Right. They talk about the world and humanity.
And they don't
people.
have children, which helps with the inversion because there's nothing close to them to love.
And the thing is that and then even like climate, I care about the climate. Well, it's like caring about that, it means nothing and it costs you nothing because you can't, I can't do anything about the climate. I can't do anything about humanity. I can't save humanity. I can care for my children, and that takes like a daily effort and sacrifice. And so they'd rather not do that. Instead, they'd rather sit back and just talk in the abstract about how they love all people everywhere.
And they don't.
I was thinking about that.
They spend any amount of time with many of these people. I'll give a shout out to one of my favorite countries, Sweden. I know it's been a while since I was there, but they love to talk about how they're not racist and they're very progressive. And it's actually one of the most racist countries I've ever been to. They isolate their migrants into ghettos. They move them over decades into these isolated little communities where they are effectively outside of Swedish society. And even white Americans that I met who had moved to Sweden, who were fluent in Swedish, said they couldn't get jobs because Swedes are actually very xenophobic. They don't like people from outside their country. They pretend to. Sorry, Sweden. That's what people told me.
This is just they're like, look, we care about them. We gave them their own place to live.
This is what many leftists do. They say, oh, we care so much of the plight of the oppressed people of color. We're going to take them in. And then once no one's looking, they go throw them in the back.
Yeah. They'd collect them. It's like McDonald's Happy Meal toys.
On the drive over, I was thinking about the difference of the left and the right. And it's not just the two sides, but in this political instance, there's the people that care about the group and the power and the strength of community and group. That's the left, is like, together we are strong, that's a fascist crap, whatever, together. And there is something to that. A group is way more effective than a single person in a lot of ways. But then on the right, it's more about individual taking care of yourself and your immediate surroundings, which also has value, a lot of value, because a group is made up of individuals. So if you don't empower the individuals, you have a weak group, a group of weaklings, and you don't want that. So but it's also dangerous to be too far right where you're like, look, I only care about my immediate surroundings and I don't care at all about the group, because it's very important that we
have wisdom.
Make sure that people aren't crapping in the water upstream, because there are people living downstream and one day that's going to come back to you. And there's a balance, there's a fluctuation between, I think, both sides that you have to maintain.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing about immigration and the compassion of it, their how their position is supposedly compassionate, is it's very funny to me in a morbid way how open these people are about the fact that what they're really concerned about is that they're going to lose their slave labor. And, we heard it from the woman who gave the fake bishop who gave her sermon. Right. Who's going to mop our floors? Who's going to pick our crops? Who's going to shine my shoes if we don't have the illegals here?
That's exactly how they think of it.
I mean,
and they just come out and say,
even beyond that, a lot of the people who come in illegally end up homeless, or they live just in hotels. Mm-hmm. They don't They don't actually have what we would consider a good life here. And I think that all of the NGOs and Democrats know that, and they don't care.
How many children were lost coming over that border?
They don't
Hundreds
care.
of thousands don't care. Well, they don't value the children's lives either.
Child
clearly.
abuse and abduction and, sexual assault and things like that. It's just, we don't talk about that because bringing them over here is for some reason better. Graph go up.
And they can't build a good life in their homes of origin either, because it's kind of like if you listen to the left, they say, oh well, all these immigrants are coming and they're very useful and they are very skilled and they're doing a lot of important things. Well, if that's true, then what you're telling me is that the countries they're coming from are losing everyone they need to like build a functioning society. So this is a win-win. You send them back there, they can build up their own countries to be this thriving place, and we can live in a multicultural world where all the countries are strong. Like, you would think they'd be in favor of that.
I mean, I'm sympathetic to the fact that other countries have really corrupt governments. I think that's a reality, but I don't think that problem is getting solved. We're not addressing any of these root problems. We're just making everything worse and ruining our foreign policy.
We can certainly solve our problems. Let's jump to the story from CNN, of all sources. U.S. military ordering thousands more troops to the southern border. I believe the number is around 1,500. Donald Trump is certainly taking this seriously. And then we have this tweet from OSINT Defender. CNN is reporting that U.S. Transportation Command has been instructed by the Pentagon to prepare to use military assets, including C-130 and C-17 military transport aircraft for migrant repatriation flights. So Trump ain't screwing around.
Wow.
I love it. I love
wow.
And
it's got to be done right. It's got to be done by the book. The last thing we want is when you get operations this large, there's a lot of room for error and abuse, and the margin of error on this one is going to be slim.
You cannot be abusing women and children when we're deporting people who are here illegally. That is a nightmare scenario.
And the left is going to be looking for they're going to be looking for their immigrant George Floyd, their Jose Floyd moment, and you can't give it to them. But this is also going to be. It's going to be very telling because right now the polls show that a strong majority of Americans support mass deportation.
70%.
70%, which is that's
huge.
In America these days, if you can get 70% on anything, that's quite telling. So now we're going to get all of the misery porn from the media, and we're going to see all the sobbing migrants. We're already seeing some of that. They're going to ramp it up. So check the poll. Like a month from now, I want to see that poll again. If it's still at 70% around there in support, then the left is done on this issue. I mean, they're finished.
There's one more thing that I want to say. I heard today they're sending Marines to the border, and they're not sending them, as toothless. They're sending them in combat gear, and they have orders that if the cartels shoot at them, they're going to be ordered to return fire. And that honestly is a very good thing, in my opinion. I know this is making Angela a little nervy.
Scary.
Look, Mexico's the biggest trading partner, or the United States is the biggest trading partner Mexico has. Mexico has every incentive to stop.
They need to get their
working with the cartels and start working with the United States to fix this problem. Mexico has been allowing immigrants to cross through their country for ages and ages, and they've been shoving people into the United States. The United States taking a firm stance and saying, you are not sending people into the United States anymore, and we're going to put teeth behind those words is a good thing.
It's a horribly corrupt government.
Absolutely.
Oh, the border's a mess. When I was in Yuma, you could just see the border agents just let them come over. They throw the homemade ladders over the wall. They climb over. They get a ride to the facility and then a plane ticket to someone who has a phone, who picks up the phone in any state in this country.
And as I bring up as often as I can, thanks to the work of Dr. Phil, many of these people are trafficking children to prostitution.
Yep.
Horrible.
And CBP knows. They know they're doing it.
Yep.
So I've gone as far as to say that the officers who have brought a child into this country, seen the phone number on their arm, called it, knowing it was sex trafficking, they should be prosecuted.
Yep. I think so.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is like a real libertarian hotspot. Our party's platform is technically open borders. I think a lot of people are starting to come around, though, because this is insanity. You can't just say, well, it's, we just want to have free movement of people, do whatever you want. Okay, well, are we talking about literally like free movement of people, like we're picking them up and packaging them and selling them? Because that's slavery. We're
happening.
not pro-slavery.
Yeah. I mean, there's the idea of open borders can be great, right? The idea of legalized drugs so that way people don't have to go to jail for smoking marijuana sounds great.
You got to have property rights.
There's a
doesn't
lot
work
of
without
things.
property rights.
Yeah,
I think both of those ideas sound terrible.
We have no morals in this society.
But
It won't work.
the reason that they sound terrible is because you know the ramifications, you know the repercussions, you know what it does to society, and that's the point. The actual application of these things is bad and has really, really, really bad downstream effects.
Wasn't it that Austin Peterson got booed when he was asked if people should be allowed to sell, was it heroin to children?
Probably heroin to children.
And then
he
you
said
hear
no.
libertarians going, boo.
Boo, boo. Yeah.
That is so strange.
I mean, it's
he
because
said no to heroin to children.
Yeah, and he got
booed for it.
It's because Matt Walsh.
It's
is
okay to
dying
laugh at
inside right now.
libertarians. It's
It's okay. You can laugh at us. We have a special term for the people who do that. It's called lulberts. So those are the lulberts.
What's the argument for it? Like,
Freedom.
For heroin for children.
But yeah, like what are they saying in
The
their
government
minds that
shouldn't
that's okay?
do it. The private sector should do it. And okay, well then we have to have a moral society, and that begins by not booing it.
But we have a
when we
morally
talk
bankrupt
about
society.
like we don't
Yes.
have a moral
Yeah.
society, and
Far from it.
it's a problem, and
Well,
it's a
doesn't it-
spiritual problem.
Doesn't it go back because libertarians, you hear the government shouldn't legislate morality? So is that basically their argument that this is that to prevent
Yes.
children from getting heroin is somehow imposing a moral
Yes.
code arbitrarily?
But they won't follow it up by saying, and we should shame and ostracize and run out of business anyone who tries to sell heroin
Yeah, but
to
the other
children.
thing that I don't get, because it's libertarians believe that there should be some laws, correct?
It depends. So there's a lot of anarchists who lump themselves in with libertarianism. So you'll also find just minimal government libertarians. They want police and military just to keep our border secure.
Yeah. Well, that's what gets me is that if you are rejecting all law entirely, that's a whole different. I think that's insane, but it's a whole different thing. But the don't legislate morality thing never made any sense to me, because literally any law that's ever been passed in the history of mankind in any country anywhere has been a legislation of morality, and that's the basis for why is something made illegal? Well, because it's bad.
We treat it,
which doesn't mean that every bad thing is made illegal, but that is why it's made illegal.
we treat it like property rights issues as opposed to, church lady issues, I guess, to put it crudely. Does that make sense?
We actually didn't need laws for a long time. When society was a bit smaller,
Yes.
you didn't need it because people just agreed to function in the society, whether something was right or wrong. The reason
big guy would come in and beat you up.
Yeah.
Well,
in the day.
sanctioned by the people.
Yeah,
Yes.
they just watch it happen.
And what happens is, as societies, as cultures break apart, and you get many different cultures, you begin to have to write down the way things should be and show them to people. And there's this. I think the guy's if I get your name wrong, forgive me. I think it's Wade Stotts. He's a commentator, and he made this great video about how a constitution. What does it mean? Where does the word come from? It's what constitutes the people, and we didn't. Most countries didn't write them down because the idea was the people and what constitutes them is known to the people. But in the United States, understanding in the early days that we had so many different states and people lived different climates and everything, they said we better write this down. So where we are now it's actually quite simple. Matt, if everybody shared your moral structure and worldview, you would need no police and no standing armies. And for the
the
libertarian,
world would be a perfect place if everyone just agreed.
men would
if everyone just admitted that I'm right.
Men would
that's
handle
absolutely true.
things. Women would work the gossip line effectively to keep people in line socially.
Nobody-
Men would take care of the outliers.
the shopping carts would be put away every time.
But until someone runs out of food, and then it's like, even if they believe
No.
what Matt believes, it's like, hey,
no,
nope,
give me
private
some food. And he's
charity
like, hey,
would
it's my
work
food.
perfectly.
Let me ask you this, Matt. If you came across someone from your community where you live that you knew and their house had burned down and they were desperate, would you offer them any kind of charity or aid?
Sure.
And your neighbors would too. In a just and moral society, like where does insurance come from? Original insurance was when people lived near each other. If my house burns down, you help me rebuild, because if yours burned down, I help you rebuild. We were a community that shared values, shared morals. In the United States, they would go to church
but
every week.
You still need a law, though. I mean, even in a just and moral society, unless we're talking about a literal utopia where everybody is perfect and we're
connected by like a neural net.
or if we're talking about heaven,
strong cultural norms.
This is a pure hypothetical suggestion. There's no way in reality that literally everyone on this planet would be like, I have the exact moral foundations
Correct. Yeah.
of Matt Walsh 100%. But I know, Matt, and I believe this is true for many people in the United States of all different backgrounds, but largely of Christians, that if they all shared the same moral values, there would be no need for police.
Yeah.
Well, I would say even if they share the same moral values, there certainly is a need for police and laws. So sharing the value, I mean, you can share values, you can have certain values and violate those values and still do bad things. So someone can have great Christian values and truly believe in them, and then they could go commit murder. I mean, it can happen.
But you never would.
Right, I wouldn't. But just because someone does something bad or commits a crime, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that they didn't have those values. It just means they violate those values because we're a flawed, fallen species. So
fair.
If everyone shares the same values, you still need law. If we lived in some sort of utopia where everybody shares and actually follows a perfect moral system, then in that case, that's sure. But
that's what I mean. It's a hypothetical that doesn't exist.
I don't
and so
think of it as
we write things
utopia.
down because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think of it as utopia. I'm not ever trying to achieve utopia or anything realistic. I think what I'm trying to do, especially right now, since I've been sort of thrust into this real world politicking, is what is the bare minimum? And can we shave off all of this crap that we've been talking about, where the justice system has been weaponized and abused, and it's grown into just this monster? Like, what is the bare minimum that we can function at, and what is preventing us from functioning at that bare minimum? Is it hordes of people from another culture who are here trying to take advantage, and people are trying to take advantage of them as they come in? Is it Marxism in academia? Like, what is preventing us from being our very best?
I think it's a lack of communication about morality, because you can have people try and compensate for a lack of good with more law. And that's a big problem. So you want to shave down the laws to minimum, but also enhance the good. And that's a conversation, because it's a group. The group has to agree on that.
Let me. I guess whittle that down in another way. You're right. I think there's another way to say it, and it's that the United States has become increasingly less religious.
Yeah.
This is a country where the founding documents are largely built upon the Christian moral tradition. Whether the founding fathers were deists, secular, or otherwise doesn't matter. These we talk about it quite a bit, but many of the amendments, the ideas of property rights, they are literally rooted in the Christian moral tradition. And over the past several decades, past couple of generations, we have what Dennis Prager referred to as, I think he calls it cut stem or cut flower politics, where we have removed out a generation from the roots of this nation, and we hold up the flower and talk about how beautiful it is as it withers and dies.
Yes.
So what you're saying is that we're not having the conversation around morality. Well, it used to be that kids would go to church and kids would have a moral tradition in their faith. I'm not telling everyone you have to believe in God or be Christian. I'm saying with that, there were people who grew up and were raised to function under a certain structure. We don't have that now. Now kids grow up and they watch a dude dry hump Satan on TV. The morals are just completely gone.
Even worse, though, is the fact that we have people parading themselves around as supposed Christians, like the heretic bishop in this city.
Exactly.
They've recreated Christ in their own image. It's
woke
insane.
Christianity.
So these people think they're Christian, and they've mutilated the idea of it.
Well, and it creates this kind of incoherence, which is to your point that, at a certain point, it all starts to break down. You have to understand why. You can have laws in place, you can have these principles in place, but why are they there? And even something as basic as the concept of a right, you've a human right, and we think of this as like this universal concept, and we think of it now as a secular concept even. And people who are totally secular and atheists talk about human rights all the time. But all you have to do is just go follow the thread of a human right. Just follow it for a few steps, and you get to a point where, well, wait a second, what does that mean? Where does that come from?
Yeah.
A human right in and of itself is a religious concept.
Spark of divinity.
Right, and because if there is no God, our notion of human rights in this country is built on the idea that there's a creator God, and because we were created by God, we have this inherent human dignity, and from there springs our human rights. Well, if there's no God, then what do you mean right? Like, what are you talking about? I have a right. What do you mean you have a right to it? Then a right is nothing but a totally arbitrary thing that was written on a piece of paper. And then the people, what that means is that you could just take it off the piece of paper And it doesn't make any sense for you to say, well, wait a minute, you took away my rights.
And this is why the liberals argue as though the Constitution granted us rights.
Yes.
As opposed to the reality in which we are endowed by our Creator.
The Constitution recognized
their rights are
Yes.
connected to false gods, and they have no moral center.
A lot of why people have rejected religion, in my opinion, is because they're rejecting authority and being told by a preacher or a priest, this is the way it is, because you've seen corruption within churches from time to time. But the thing is, there's always going to be an author in your life. There's always going to be an external authority, and that becomes the television if you're not careful.
When you talk to a lot of atheists and agnostic people, they tend to sound like teenagers that are mad at their dad. That when it boils down to it, and I'm a guy that's generally pretty agnostic, and I still see the impact that religion has. I see the necessity for it. I see, I acknowledge the fact that there's been no human civilization in all of human history that didn't have religion. It's likely that even pre-humans like Neanderthals and other human species had religion as well. So the idea that religion is something that we can just throw away is a ridiculous proposition. And when you listen to people that want to be modern atheists or whatever, they always sound like, I don't need a sky daddy. It's like, well, now you just sound like a kid that's mad at his dad because he took away his Nintendo.
But they want the government to be their sky daddy.
Instead of
that's the thing, that it always replaces it. Yeah.
Instead of tower to heaven, Tower of Babel, it feels like it's the inverse, like bureaucratic ladder to hell. That's the cultural vibe.
Let's jump to the story because it's not all bad news. We got this from the Post Millennial. Pride flags removed from U.S. outposts worldwide.
Absolutely great news.
Starting immediately, only the United States of America flag is authorized to be flown.
Should have always been the case.
That's kind of reasonable for U.S.
What's
proper
that guy
bases
standing
and things,
in
right?
front of?
What is this?
Is that another country's flag?
I think that's is it?
I hope not.
The Trump administration has implemented the new one flag policy requiring all U.S. embassies and government outposts, both domestic and international, to exclusively fly the American flag. It is absolutely creepy and a bit terrifying that U.S. embassies and outposts were flying a flag of ideology.
Yep.
It's just about sexuality too, which is super weird.
Well, no, they put the black and the brown stripe on it. So,
okay.
And often flying them in countries, it's a deliberate act of antagonizing a lot of these countries that don't believe in this nonsense. And this is another one of those things that, it goes to show that what we consider conservative policy ideas, the vast majority of them are really just common sense, and they have wide approval. Because if you go, I don't care, left, right, center, and if someone had no context and you ask them, well, do you think it makes sense for embassies to only fly American flags? American embassies? Like almost everyone said, well, yeah, of course. What else would they fly? What do you mean? And yet these kinds of things were happening all over the place. And as much as the left talks about democracy and the will of the people, they were happening even though the vast majority of people don't support it. And the only reason they got away with it is because the vast majority of people didn't really know that it was happening.
And everybody knows to reference the comment that I was just making, is everyone knows that if you put up a flag with a Christian cross on it or anything like that, the left would have had an absolute aneurysm. Sure. And those flags are without a doubt a religious flag to the left. Mm-hmm. So the fact that these things are being taken down, the left is having an absolute fit about it because you're mocking their religion, and they really look like they had conquered Christianity in the United States, which I think would be a terrible thing. Again, even though I'm generally an agnostic dude, I think that having gender ideology as the religion that the United States worships, I think there's probably nothing that's worse for society, considering what you end up with is cutting the body parts off of children.
It's pretty perverse.
I think it's reasonable to take religious iconography off of U.S. bases. And I don't know what U.S. outposts are. I haven't really heard that term thrown around. I know U.S. embassies.
I don't necessarily agree. I actually have no real concern of Christian iconography in government places the way the liberals really do.
It's also historical.
In our courts, they swear on Bibles. They offer up other texts. When the president is being sworn in, they offer up a Bible.
Oh, they offer it. Yeah, Trump didn't touch the Bible.
Yeah, I guess people were upset about that.
Some
but
people
whatever.
said that.
And there's been an effort throughout my life to try and make the claim that the U.S. government should never have these things, but are part of our moral tradition. And so if I go to a court building or I go to an embassy and there's something related to Christianity, it's just normal. It's been that way in this country for a long time. It is the root of our morality in this country.
Yeah.
To replace that with an insane ideology that harms children is devastating. So I think the philosophical approach I've been taking, the way I've been approaching this for the past, a year or so, has been more post-liberal. This idea of these universal principles apply to all things is just incorrect. And this as an example, came when I was debating Bobby Sauce on the issue of TikTok. And he said, look, we don't believe in big government, so we shouldn't give the government the power to do these things. And my point was, there are some things that are morally good. There are some things that are morally bad. Just because we ban one doesn't mean we ban all. And just people make the argument that, if we don't ban the left, if we implement a law that will stop the left from doing this one bad thing, later on they can use it against us. And it's like, okay, well, they're doing a bad thing now. We're not going to let them keep doing it just because one day someone might do another bad thing. We stop things we don't like that are bad, and that is, they're flying these flags of ideology that are abhorrent and have been destructive to this country. Stop. Christianity, largely good for this country.
Okay, this is a little bit of a tangent, but what's up with the cross? Like, it's what they killed the dude with. If your prophet was murdered with a gun, you wouldn't put a gun on a flag and fly that thing. So like, the cross is a prophet.
Jesus Christ's sacrifice and death was the salvation of mankind, and so that's what the cross signifies.
It's salvation.
I feel like
and a stark reminder of what was sacrificed, which was like pretty heavy stuff there.
If Jesus was like, I'm not going to do it, and they're like, then die, and they put a gun to his head and killed him, and then they put the gun on the flag, I'd be like, bro, he still got sacrificed. But
okay. First of all, you're arguing something entirely different.
I know it's not. It's not even the point.
But I want to stress this, that there is this, as I mentioned, this long-standing effort my whole life to say that religion should be entirely separate, the separation of church and state, and all of these things. But it is in our Constitution, in our founding documents, in literally what helped the founding fathers craft this country that worked so well was quite literally the Christian religion. I am not a Christian. I don't follow the same beliefs as Matt, and some people have told me I will burn in hell, whatever. But I understand logic, and I can look at the history of this country and see where we are and why we got here, and the beliefs that led us to this place, and say those were good things. Largely, some things we progressed upon. We got rid of slavery. We did things like that, which means we've improved upon ourselves. How did we come to the point where we developed these ideas, wrote them down, and it's our moral tradition? So again, if I see a school and they tell kids, like, here are some of the things that we believe, we want to put the 10 Commandments in a courtroom or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Like,
it's the 10 Commandments. I'm also not offended by Hammurabi's code. So much of this is also historical. It's like we just threw out common sense and wisdom.
Yes.
And these things, to your point, like, you don't have to like it. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. It is just a fact that our system of government is built on Christian ideals. It just simply is. And so this is part of our history. It's part of our identity as a nation, which is why you're exactly right that there is a major difference between a freaking pride flag and a cross. The pride flag has nothing to do with the history of this nation. Nothing good has ever been achieved under the pride flag. Now the cross, and I know you were being a bit, you didn't mean it totally seriously, and I hear this kind of comment. Well, why the cross? And you say it in kind of a flippant way, but it's a valid question. Well, why that? And the answer is that it's the Christ's death and resurrection was our salvation, but also the cross itself. And if you're not a Christian, you don't get it. It doesn't mean a lot to you. I understand that, but our civilization was built under this symbol. People marched under this symbol, not just in this country, but across the Western world. And we live in the civilization that we do. And every good thing that we have in our lives is really because people believed in the cross and they went out and they did incredible things and they fought and they died for the sake of the cross. And so I think that even if I wasn't Christian, and it's hard for me to put myself in that mindset, but even if I wasn't Christian, as someone who respects history and who is a big fan of Western civilization, it's the civilization I live in, it's a great civilization, I would still have a respect for the cross for that reason alone. You know,
It radically
exactly my
changed-
position.
Christianity radically changed the way that people deal with each other, our human interactions. Women were treated much better
Yep.
through Christianity. We were no longer considered like cattle. It doesn't mean that we're the same as men or that we need to be, weird, freaky, OnlyFans sex people. Slaves were treated better. Oh, that's so terrible. Well, it was the precedent across the entire globe.
And slavery was abolished
Through Christianity.
Through Christianity. The reason why we live in this country right now and why this whole hemisphere is not currently dominated by stone-aged savage cultures who rip the hearts out of their enemies and eat them and kill and enslave women and children. The reason why that's not the case is that people came here primarily to spread the Christian gospel.
People need to watch Apocalypto.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
great.
Mel Gibson does a real good
Absolutely.
job, doesn't he?
I believe in the power of Christianity and the general ethos of the meaning of the story and everything, a lot about it. But I'm also nervous about icons and worshiping icons because the whole Elon threw his hand out and it's like, bro, it's the meaning behind the symbol. Like the swastika was the wheel of life, it was the turning of life, the Hindu symbol of peace or whatever it meant. But it was a healthy symbol of growth and change. And then this wild ideological party came along and co-opted it and made it seem like an evil symbol.
I've got to implore you to maybe perhaps watch some George Carlin comedy. There's a 1992, I think it was 92 special, where George Carlin literally says every racial slur imaginable and then ends by calling Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor the N-word.
That is
and
really
let me
good.
finish. And everyone laughs. And then George Carlin says, it's not the word, it's the man behind them. And you know that I don't actually feel that way about these guys. The point he was making was that the actions of the individual matter. When Elon Musk grabs his chest and then grunts and throws his arm
says,
up.
my heart goes out to you. And he throws his energy out to the field.
But it doesn't matter if it resembled the Roman salute. It matters the man behind what had happened. And Elon was not hailing Hitler or praising an ideology. He was literally saying, thanks to all of you, my heart goes out to you.
Yeah.
So we ask ourselves, what is the intention and who is the man behind the words? Elon Musk was not in the process of being a white supremacist.
No one really believes that Elon Musk is a Nazi. Of course he's not. And if we lived in a saner culture, then we could just have a laugh about it. Like it's objectively kind of funny that he made that gesture and he meant to say what it meant for him was I'm sending my heart out to you.
Right.
Like that's just funny. So you laugh at it and then you move on. But to your point about icons, I mean, it goes back to not all icons are the same, but also this is just part of what it means to be a human being. Like symbolism and icons, it means something to us. I think it's one of the things that makes us people. I mean, if you show a symbol means nothing to, a monkey or a rhinoceros. It means nothing to them. But to human beings, we imbue these things with meaning. And now, if you want to get really, utilitarian about it, and it's like, well, why? I mean, why that exact collection of lines and stuff that looks like why does that matter? And you could dissect it to death, but I think sort of the answer is, well, just because we're human. I mean, it's because we're human.
Sacred geometry and things like cymatics, where vibration will cause certain shapes.
Exactly. Human written language is these are all symbols. So letters are just symbols that mean something else, that stand for something else.
Ian, it's actually quite simple. I can explain to you iconography. They're simply human compression files. That's it. When Matt Walsh sees the symbol of the cross, all of the information related to Christianity lights up in his mind.
I think about this: the Hebrew alphabet, the ancient text of the Hebrew alphabet. I think they were sitting like if you study cymatics, where you'll change the frequency and you have like sand on a vibrating membrane. You get these wild shapes and patterns will appear depending on what frequency. So these dudes are on a beach and they have a goat skin and they're playing the drums and they're throwing sand gets on the drums and they go, oh, they make a certain sound and then it makes a certain pattern. And they're like, whoa. So they write that pattern down and they remember that's the sound of that shape. And that's where alphabet comes from. Potentially. That's sort of
I don't think that's true because there's many different languages that have different symbols for different sounds.
That's true.
But let's jump to this next story. We've got this one from 404 Media. TikTok says it is not censoring free Palestine comments. Users see something different. Well, we have this video where it says TikTok is dead. Free Palestine is now considered a symbol of hate speech. Take a look at this video. So in it, you can see them type in Free Palestine as a comment. They're watching Hassan of all people, go to their notifications and refresh, and sure enough, they show system notification. A comment you posted on the date was removed for violating our community guidelines. Now, apparently, a bunch of people are reporting this, that when you go on TikTok and type in Free Palestine, you will get the comment removed. We can see a bunch of these comment details, Free Palestine, removed. 404 Media, or I'm sorry, that looks like an ad or whatever. But many people are reporting the same thing. 404 Media reports several TikTok users posted screenshots on X and Blue Sky showing a message they received after trying to comment Free Palestine. They're going to say, I tried this myself on Tuesday morning using 2 different throwaway TikTok accounts. Using one account, I could comment Free Palestine without a problem. The comment is still up. Using another, my Free Palestine comments were immediately removed repeatedly, and I received a notification that I had violated the TikTok community guidelines. I could comment with a nonsense phrase, Free Shavocado, using the same account, however, and TikTok didn't remove it. A spokesperson for TikTok told 404 the platform's policies and algorithms did not change over the weekend, adding that they're working on restoring U.S. operations back to normal. What I've heard from a lot of these people, they believe there's a conspiracy that when TikTok went dark, Donald Trump took it over, and that it's now under the control of Israeli interests or something to that effect.
Is that illegal? Is that illegal to say in another country? Did they plug in the wrong countries?
Free Palestine?
Is it?
I don't think it's illegal to say anywhere. Like, I don't even think in Israel it's illegal to say.
Pretty wild.
Now, Free Israel. If you said something like pro-Israel, there's a lot of countries that absolutely you'd get in trouble for. I think in Malaysia, it's a crime to defend Israel. I could be wrong.
Whether they're being coerced into this or they're just like, whatever we got to do to maintain presence in the United States. You want us to ban the enemy of the country you're supporting in war, then we'll ban it. Whatever you got to do. We want our spy tech in your country.
I don't support it, but I don't know what's going on. I mean, this is really vague.
Well, look, at least you can still shout Free Shavocado.
That is really encouraging.
Goodness.
That's my number one issue.
I think everyone should just switch over to saying that, and if that gets banned, then you'll know.
Delicious food, by the way.
Free Shavocado.
Oh, yeah. People saying they were
Shavocado from the river to the sea.
Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Yemen are listed as having some restriction on expressions of support for Israel. So there are a lot of countries. I don't know that any country bans you saying anything about Palestine, though.
Interesting.
It's just a private company.
So the reason why this story is pretty big is because the argument was, and I believe this is true, it was only after October 7th and pro-Palestinian content became prominent on TikTok that Democrats got on board with Republicans to force China to divest. I believe, as we've gone over ad nauseum, for those of you that watch every show, we put the data from Axios that seems to suggest TikTok made an algorithmic change to promote pro-Palestinian content. After October 7th, there was 123,000 pro-Palestine comments. It was I Stand With Palestine, only 11 million views. In the next week, with 87,000, it jumped to 285 million views, which is indicative of an algorithmic push. I am not telling you to support one country or another. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying after this change happened, Democrats all of a sudden changed their tune and said, yeah, we actually think this app should be banned. Now, if it is true that TikTok is actually banning Free Palestine, perhaps they are trying to now court favor with those that sought their forced divestiture.
I'm confused. Is it that Democrats don't like Palestine or they don't like China?
Democrats are presumably, the argument is, after this what appears to be an algorithmic change, many groups lobbied to Democrats saying China has altered the algorithm in a way that subverts U.S. foreign policy interests.
I see.
Now, depending on which bubble you live in on the internet, maybe you think the Jews control the world. These people think that Israel went and told them, we will destroy you unless you bend to our will. The reality is, if it is true that China, that ByteDance or TikTok or whatever changed the algorithm, going against American foreign policy, whatever it may be, is going to be terrifying to American politicians. And so they're going to say, hey, that's a security threat. And as much as a lot of people who hate Israel are saying it's a conspiracy, that's true. No, these politicians were on TV talking about this. Democrats and Republicans went on TV and said the support, the attacks on Israel that we see on the platform, it's bad for this country. So This had some people now speculating that TikTok was either seized, which is the conspiracy,
Right.
by the U.S., or this is what they need to do to avoid being banned, which is not the case. But
that's kind of annoying. Why don't they just change their algorithm so that people can say Free Palestine without it becoming prioritized and like fake trending?
Just downrank it, shadow ban
just
it.
let it be what it is.
Don't give it any particular rank. Just
Just let it be a word.
That's kind of a form of shadow banning.
But no, it doesn't matter. Algorithms can't do that. Algorithms, if they automate the algorithm, it is going to swing in one direction based on what the program dictates. And that's going to be for or against American foreign policy interests. And as we know, in the United States, for the longest time, up until recently, our social media was absolutely prioritizing the federal government's policy interests over the free speech of the American people.
Trump is more pro-Israel, it seems, than Biden was. He canceled foreign aid to every country on earth except Israel.
He's like pro-Israel, but also pro-make a deal so Palestinian people could stop being killed too. Like, I think he's better on this just across the board than Biden was.
Well, the reason I even brought that up is because I think that's why you're seeing this shift is because they're sympathetic to Trump being in office. Now they're like, well, he's pro-Israel, so let's go a little less pro-Palestine.
Maybe they are.
Yeah, they want to.
It's all business.
TikTok
baby.
is going to want to operate 4 years safely, so they're going to throw Trump and conservatives a bone or whoever needs to hear it. And then once Trump's out of office, they're going to bomb the algorithm with Dylan Mulvaney and other like-minded ideas that subvert the minds of the next generation. And right now, it seems that many people in the conservative movement are in favor of what TikTok is doing. And I think it's terrifying.
Can you clarify, Matt? You said a couple other countries too. He didn't cancel foreign aid too. I don't know anything.
I believe there was a couple others.
Well,
do you know off the top of your head?
No, I think there was two others.
Cancel as much as we can. That makes me so happy. No more welfare queens across the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised that they wouldn't censor something like From the River to the Sea instead of Free Palestine, which seems a little bit more innocuous.
I mean, I'm surprised that it is. If it is being censored, it surprises me.
It surprises me too. That's not a scary phrase. I understand the arguments that, like, talking about hang gliders and freedom fighters of people who murdered other people. Okay, but it's like Free Palestine. Okay, well,
even if I disagree with those, they should be allowed.
There you go.
And it sucks, but
I'm just surprised.
I heard that Trump paused foreign aid, and then yesterday someone said, except for Israel.
I think there are others.
Israel, Jordan, and Egypt, if I understand correctly.
I looked that up, but is that confirmed?
Right. That's I don't. That's what the information that I have. I can't.
What I looked up I didn't see that. But let me try and get direct sourcing.
Hopefully, we don't get more aggressive social media censorship.
Oh, geez. I mean, if the thing about TikTok is it is owned by ByteDance, which serves the CCP in a lot of ways.
It's a totally crazy, unhinged platform.
It's like, I mean, I don't know the Chinese Communist Party. I don't know anyone in the party. I would love to, but I have heard like, yo, that's very bad. What they're doing is wrong. What they're doing is heavy censorship.
I mean,
like full force, just violent, shutting down protests. Like the Tiananmen Square massacre apparently was horrific. So I wouldn't be even remotely surprised if they're just like smack it.
They have Uyghurs in concentration camps. They're terrible.
I don't know that those countries are exempt.
Oh, really?
I'm looking right now.
Let me just read just to make sure. So I'm reading the executive order. It says 90-day pause in United States foreign development assistance for assessment of programmatic efficiencies and consistency with United States foreign policy. All department agency heads with responsibility for United States foreign development assistance programs shall immediately pause new obligations and disbursements of development assistance funds to foreign countries and implementing non-governmental organizations, international organizations, and contractors pending reviews of such programs for programmatic efficiency and consistency with the United States policy. To be conducted within 90 days of this order, the office, the OMB shall enforce this, blah, blah, blah.
PBS is reporting that some of the biggest recipients of U.S. assistance, Israel, Egypt, and Jordan, are unlikely to see dramatic reductions as those amounts are included in long-term packages that date back decades or in some cases governed by treaty obligations.
Sure, that's presumptive. That's them saying perhaps. The executive order doesn't have any exceptions. It literally just says we're going to review all foreign aid.
Nice.
So he could right before he signs the order, be like, send them $100 billion. All right, no more.
He could.
No,
but he didn't.
The president can't just give money like that.
Oh, you're right.
It's an act of Congress.
That's got to go through Congress.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a lot of these executive orders are interesting because Congress will pass a law. Like the TikTok ban, for instance, is a law passed by Congress, signed by the president, upheld by the Supreme Court. Trump has no authority to stop that. He can instruct federal law enforcement not to enforce it, but he cannot take away the penalties from companies. He tried to, but that's not within the scope of the president's powers. So as of right now, once again, Google has not restored TikTok. Trump's executive order was largely meaningless.
I think this is wild. Okay, it's an act of Congress. I'm not a fan.
I don't think they did
TikTok?
it right.
No, I'm not a fan on the ban.
I'm a big fan of the ban of TikTok.
Tell me more. Tell me why.
Why would we allow a foreign country to control mass media in the United States and a strong portion, not the biggest, not a majority, but a strong portion of our economy?
Couldn't we have worked out some other sort of deal so
Like what?
that didn't happen? Change your algorithm. Don't
Open source the algorithm
propagandize
and give the
us.
U.S. full control of it.
I don't know if we even need full control, but it's like, can we actually see what's going on? Maybe just a little bit of transparency.
Nope. Because then they just show us that they're screwing over Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and we watch them do it. Look, what people need to understand about TikTok or any other social media platform, even X, Facebook, YouTube, et cetera, is that they're going to apply the system is going to be built on pressures they can apply. What YouTube did, and this is proven by data, was they created a recommendation algorithm that favored the left by a small percentage, but substantial, with the intention of stopping Donald Trump. There was a researcher in Australia who posted this, and you could see that if you went to a conservative YouTuber's channel, after you watched their video, there was a certain percentage of recommendation that would be liberal leaning. If you went to a liberal channel, you would get very little, if any, conservative. Meaning, if someone said, "Hey, watch this video on immigration from Matt Walsh," and you clicked on it, after you were done, it would autoplay a liberal arguing the opposite. If someone said, "Hey, watch this video from, the Young Turks," and you clicked it, the next video would be another liberal arguing the same thing. That creates a flow towards the ideology they want. TikTok is doing that. Look, there was
Is it different than what YouTube does, though? I mean, how different is it?
The difference is that in the United States, I can file a lawsuit against YouTube. We can elect a president who then issues an executive order, and YouTube bends the knee and apologizes. I can file lawsuits about violation of contracts. I can't do that with the Chinese Communist Party.
How much of TikTok is owned by China, though? I thought it was not the entire company.
Right. It's a small percentage and that's why they have to divest from it, because they do collect the data. Some of the reports that have come up about what TikTok collects, they inject JavaScript keyloggers if you open any links through the app. Mm-hmm. And it's been reported, and this could be wrong, reported that it collects data from other apps on your phone.
Yep.
That data goes outside this country to a foreign adversary. But I'm not even as concerned. That's very terrifying if those reports are true. Maybe they're not. The worrying thing to me is that Dylan Mulvaney had 13 million followers and Riley Gaines had 600,000. That stuff's patently obvious. Prominent Trump-supporting and conservative voices were banned. And that's why Trump and conservatives came out initially and said, we have to shut this down. They're attempting to swing the politics of the United States.
Let me ask you that, because this is an issue that I haven't staked out very firm ground on, which is one of the things that sucks about what we do is that everything that happens, you're never allowed to go, I'm not sure exactly how I feel about that. You have to immediately know exactly how you feel. But that's not, sometimes I'm just like, okay, I can kind of see it from both ways. And this is one of those things I can kind of see it both ways. And I do agree with you that to me, the more compelling aspect of the argument is about how this is harmful to kids and how it's polluting the minds of children. To me, just as a parent, the way that I think, I care more about that. The stuff about, the Chinese government is, well, it's like, everything we do on our phone, nothing we do is private. All the information is out there. It's like, so it's hard to even fearmonger about that stuff anymore. None of us have any privacy at all every time. But that part does resonate. But then my issue with that is, okay, so you ban TikTok. Well, then there's approximately 600 billion other websites and apps that are just as harmful to the young mind. And then they just go to that. So part of me thinks if we're going to get to the point now, like banning an app, that's a big step. And I'm not necessarily opposed to big steps. Sometimes you got to, especially to protect kids, big steps. Okay. But it's like, I wouldn't start with TikTok. I would start with, like, we're not OnlyFans. I mean, it's literally a prostitution app. This is a multi-billion-dollar cyber prostitution ring. Why don't we ban that?
Well, so
and then get to start talking about some of these social media apps.
So the way I view it is we here in the United States have a set of rules, laws, and absolutely, let's have Congress ban OnlyFans, or at least require submitted IDs to these things to prove your age. And protect children the way we would in the real world. And so my view is largely two things can be bad. So right now, my concern is, I'll put it this way. YouTube, Facebook, X, they were manipulating us for political ends. And we challenged them. There were whistleblowers. There were journalists who did great work. There were lawsuits that we won that got information revealed. There were debates. I had a debate with Twitter's executives with Joe Rogan, and we won. We called them out, and we swayed the American mind, and we have affected positive change, imperfect, but positive change so far. We will never know what the algorithm of TikTok does. TikTok is banned in China. They won't let their kids watch it. They don't let their country use it. And ByteDance, which is Chinese-owned and owns a portion of TikTok, has access to the data as well as control over the algorithm. And in China, if the Communist Party comes to you and says, do it, they will. So I understand that there are many different bad things. China buying farmland is a bad thing. Let's stop that too. I think OnlyFans is horrifying and there should be restrictions. I don't think it is a simple issue of this is an app that's bad for the minds of our kids, so we're going to ban it. This is out of the control and scope of the United States. We can ban OnlyFans. We can file lawsuits. We can change the law. We have changed the law for TikTok. It's not a ban. It's a forced divestiture. So China can sell off their portion to an American company, and then there's no problem.
Yeah, I will say that being still kind of on the fence on it, I will say that to see some conservatives, I mean, it's one if you're conservative, you're like, well, I'm against the ban for these principled reasons. Okay, I can get that, but I am uncomfortable to see some conservatives that seem like have circled the wagon around TikTok to the point that they're now like very pro TikTok, where TikTok is a good thing. And no matter where you stand on the ban, we should all at least be on the same page that this is just objectively not good for to have kids who just spend all day scrolling this damn thing and watching these videos. Your whole life is this. I mean, we've got kids. This is their whole life now. Their whole life is just, and I know I'm a billion other people complain about this, but this is a major crisis to have entire generations of kids who it's not even a human existence. It's this robotic existence of just staring mindlessly at this, and you're having your mind controlled by an algorithm. So we should at least all, no matter where you stand on the ban, it's like, this is not a good thing. And we should all be able to agree on that at least.
Agreed. And have you seen our breakdown of Dylan Mulvaney's content in the past? I'm not assuming you did. I'm assuming you probably haven't.
No, I don't think so.
We when this whole Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light thing was going on, I in my research pulled up Mulvaney's posts and went to the earliest posts, and what do you find? Dylan Mulvaney was doing something called Gay Safari.
Yeah.
And he was a theater kid, gay singer who was trying to make a show. He was trying to be famous. There's the viral video where Dylan Mulvaney goes on The Price is Right and wigs out. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Runs around in circles, does a fake rowboat, rolls around on the ground, and Hugh Carey's like, okay,
slapstick,
what's he doing?
Very slapstick.
Very
comedy.
much, please look at me. Dylan Mulvaney created a series of videos that weren't really getting any traction. Eventually, Mulvaney made a video, something about coming out as non-binary. The views were higher. Then some gay safari videos and some other videos that didn't really get a lot of views. And then I'm trans, more views. What had happened was the algorithm told Dylan Mulvaney, we will promote this and not this, that but not this. And so Dylan Mulvaney was making content. Some worked, some didn't. And as soon as Mulvaney did the trans thing and got a bunch of views, Mulvaney then started doubling down, increasingly undergoing body modification to adhere to what the algorithm had demanded of him, now making Dylan Mulvaney what Mulvaney is today. If you look at some of the earliest Dylan Mulvaney Days of Girlhood videos, it is obvious satire. Dylan Mulvaney undergoing no treatments or surgeries, insulting women in a comedic routine, saying, now that I'm a woman, I'm going to go buy a dress that costs too much money and complain about, just very offensive stereotypes about women. But how do you chase the algorithm if every day you have to do 1 degree more instead of going back to doing gay safari, which wasn't popular? Dylan Mulvaney did what the algorithm told him to do, which is get surgery.
I agree. The algorithms are all bad and they harm children, but I'm going to connect it to how we were talking about rights and crime earlier. I think we need like a renaissance in good parenting again, because I see so many parents outsourcing their parenting to the internet, and these kids are stuck in doom scroll, life, and they need to get back to actually raising children.
I agree with the principle. I just want to speak to that for a minute because, and I hear that response anytime I talk about. One of my big issues is at least age verification on all these porn sites. There's no argument against it, not any rational one. And I'm very much in favor of banning a lot of these sites outright, which I know puts me, the libertarians won't go along with that.
Boo hiss.
But so what I often hear that. I often hear, well, this is about the parents. Parents should do their jobs. And I agree. But also, I think sometimes we understate just how rigged everything is against parents. It is so difficult. Like, how do your kids are going out into a world where this stuff is everywhere. It is just everywhere. And so parents need a little help. We can't do it all on our own. Now, I've gone as extreme as you can on this issue with my own kids, and that my kids don't have phones. We just don't do phones. We don't do internet in the house. It's not going to last forever. Like, eventually they're going to have a phone.
Oh, yeah.
And for a lot of other kids, they do have phones, and I'm opposed to giving your kids a phone, but it's not this extreme move. And then also, even if you don't give your kid a phone, if they go to school somewhere, my kids are homeschooled, but if they go to school somewhere, they're around kids that have it.
And friends have phones.
Right. They go to a friend's house, and so they still have access to all those screens. And so it's just the parent, you can't, unless you're going to lock your kid in a room until they're 18 years old and give them no access to any kind of media. Unless you're going to do that.
Is that bad?
They're going to...
Yeah.
Right.
A little bit.
Yeah, they're going to have access to it. And so, but then there's this attitude of like, we're not going to do anything to help parents on this at all. And I just don't get that. And because there are basic things that are low cost, require almost no sacrifice. Age verification on these sites. What's the downside? The only downside is for the porn sites.
I have an idea. I was talking with Allison about this because we're having our kids soon.
Yes.
And I said, why don't we build an underground bunker where everything looks like the 90s, and we will raise our child for 18 years as if it was the 90s with the 90s technology, and you can't go outside because the air is poisonous. And then one day, when she's old enough, expose her to what the world is really like.
That's like that's the M. Night Shyamalan. That's the village.
But to your point,
I mean,
Matt,
the other concern, aside from parenting, though, is millions of people had shops on here and they made a living on here. And they weren't all just like insufferable Dylan Mulvaney clickbaiters. They sold T-shirts. They sold mugs, like a TikTok shop. And a lot of people got really hurt.
And that's the manipulation. They dangle a crying woman in front of you and say, but look at the poor asylum seeker, as the child traffickers are running across the border. So TikTok says, we have 7 million entrepreneurs selling mugs and shirts. Why won't you let us corrupt the mind of your children? And I say, I'm not going to be swayed by the sympathies of the average of these people. I get it. I feel bad for them. But the first thing we see when Trump signs his executive order was these journalists put out videos of crying migrant women.
Well, sure.
Because they're trying to manipulate you into accepting that we are being exploited and abused in extreme ways. So TikTok has a lot of good people on it, and that's fine. But if all we are asking is the company divest from a codified foreign adversary, that's not unreasonable. You want to sell your mugs, you go ahead and do it. But this company has access to a foreign security threat that's going to manipulate the algorithm, and it's going to take our data. So we just asked them, sell it off, make your money, let the company operate. And they said no. And TikTok, of their own volition, shut down. The law did not require them to do so. They faked that. And then they came back and said, thank you, Donald Trump, for bringing us back. Never did. TikTok is still banned in the App Store on Apple and Google because that's what the law actually did.
Are they going to divest?
No.
When
they said they won't do it.
Do we think Donald Trump can convince them?
No. And the question I have for you guys then is, if it's about making money and running a business, and ByteDance only owns a portion of TikTok, or China only owns a portion, these investors only own a portion, why not just sell? You've got the brunt of the U.S. government saying sell or lose everything. They chose to go to zero instead of $20 billion?
I'm
They're
curious-
looking to use. They want to use their influence over the American people to try and get the American people to convince politicians to change. But also, if I truly believe that if TikTok isn't like if the Chinese Communist Party is removed from TikTok totally, then it's of no value to the Chinese Communist Party. So they don't want to divest because it's an apparatus of
money.
Also, if it gets sold, dude,
money's not a consideration for the
No,
Chinese
it's not
Communist
about
Party.
money.
You have to ask yourself, especially in international exchange, what is money? Money is largely meaningless on the oil market. So when we say China divest TikTok and China there should be a forced divestiture, they're thinking to themselves, $10 billion doesn't move the needle for us.
Oh, and if
The only reason
the
they care is
ability
because
to
it's-
convince 170 million Americans that Osama bin Laden was right, which was happening on TikTok, is worth more than $1 trillion to these people.
Dude, it's absolutely about espionage and influencing American opinion.
I think if they did sell to an American company, they would have the algorithm. They'd be like, "You've been doing what for the last 5 years with our
Do
people?"
we have Do we have a shareholder statement? I haven't read anything.
It's not publicly traded.
Oh, I understand now. I understand.
You know,
So there is, I believe,
I assume
as
there's
of recent,
private shareholders.
yes, there is I believe there's a conservative billionaire who owns a small piece, and the reporting is several prominent individuals in Trump's sphere were paid to lobby on behalf of TikTok, and they did. And so while I deeply respect Charlie Kirk for all the work he did in helping Trump get elected, I will absolutely criticize his 180-degree spin from demanding the ban of TikTok over and over again to the without any real reason. I don't understand why. He flipped and said, Trump saved TikTok. We did this. Hooray. I don't understand where he's coming from with that.
Matt, you said earlier.
What's the reason that he?
I've not
gives
seen
her-
one. Maybe that's just me, but he had been leading the charge in 2020. Trump called for the banning of TikTok because it was censoring conservative opinion and propping up the likes of, Dylan Mulvaney is one example. Charlie Kirk was very much for years saying we must ban it. It's a CCP threat. I've not heard an explanation where he said it's no longer a threat from the CCP.
Well, I mean, and I'm not familiar with his view then versus now, but I will say in fairness to Charlie that people can change their views on this. People change their opinions.
Yeah,
and that's one of the like I said, one of the problems being in our position is that we have to have an opinion on everything right away. The other thing is that whatever your opinion is, it has to stay that forever. You're not allowed to change your opinion.
But some I would agree with you to a certain extent. Some things are fact questions that I don't understand why your opinion would change. Matt, if you ever came to me and told me you decided to agree on child sex changes, I'd think someone hit you on the head or something like that. That's not possible.
This is a little
This
more
is a fact
complex
question.
than that, though. I mean, like
Not if you spent years saying this is a CCP threat to the United States, and now you're saying, hooray, we have TikTok back.
I assume that he is assuming that President Trump is going to get them to divest or make some sort of change.
Perhaps. I'm not saying he doesn't have a reason.
Sure.
But I would say it is rather strange how in lockstep so many people just decided to march with one by one prominent conservatives changed their opinions without real explanation.
I mean, one criticism I have over the conservative community is they usually are pretty lockstep.
I would say tendency, not absolute.
I would say that it's often the opposite.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
And the woke are the ones who are marching in lockstep.
Oh, they're like hive mind. I mean, I would say that's.
But
from my perspective, on the right, it's a constant, and it's been a little different for like the last couple of weeks because of the feeling of victory and everything. We're feeling good, but generally the problem is almost the opposite, where we're not in lockstep about anything, and it's just this constant infighting and backbiting and
that is,
feuding and all of this.
Maybe I guess that's encouraging for me to hear because there's only one true libertarian, and it's every libertarian for himself. And it always seems like the conservative community has it together a little bit more, with the exception of the explosion of the Israel controversy recently.
The right is currently right now, or however you describe what the right is, I don't know, debating TikTok, not marching in lockstep.
Interesting.
There were a few prominent individuals who came out in favor of TikTok, like a 180, and then lesser, I don't mean lesser morally, but like smaller personalities with lesser followings, all of a sudden inverted their positions as well. And started arguing, look, with all due respect, I'm going to criticize people where they deserve it. Riley Gaines posted an image of Chinese farmland in the United States and said, how is TikTok a bigger threat than this? My first response is, a single federal agent with a clipboard can seize all of that farmland with no question. But you can't seize back the mind of 170 million people. Outside of that, the image that was shared by Riley showed that the entire island of Hawaii had been purchased by China, which is clearly not correct. So there are people sharing these fake memes that are engaging in sophistry to defend a platform that has a foreign adversary in control of it. And there doesn't seem to be a legitimate reason. Two things can be bad. I'm
sure you've thought about this, but have you, if you had, Charlie and Riley, whoever else on the show, and you guys debated this, I would, as someone who's a squishy fence rider on this thing, I'd be very interested to watch that debate with you guys.
Perhaps we should.
I am also a squishy fence rider on this. I thought Matt Walsh and I would be like fire and gasoline, but we're not. We're both I don't know.
One of the biggest fears. Are you guys familiar with ElsaGate?
Yeah.
Oh,
you're familiar with ElsaGate?
Yeah.
Matt, do you know this is 7 years ago, so you don't. This is when
I have a toddler, so I just recently, but
it started with these long form, unspoken videos emerging of people dressed like Elsa, Spider-Man, and the Joker chasing each other around. And what was happening was people were putting iPads in front of their babies and pressing play. The auto player would then choose the top keywords for children: Spider-Man, Elsa, Joker, the Hulk. But the Hulk wasn't really in a lot of those videos. And then it would autoplay it for the baby who could not choose what it was watching. This devolved into absolute psychotic content. Images of children eating feces, men injecting saline for no reason into little girls, thumbnail images of children drinking out of urinals. And it was because the algorithm was promoting these things, babies weren't choosing it, and individuals were using computer programs to just generate what they would look at the YouTube API, not Twitter, and look at what was hitting views for children. And then they would inject those things into a program which would auto-generate these videos, which became increasingly disturbing. Videos of a teddy bear brutally beating a child while the child is forced to eat out of a toilet were getting tens of thousands, millions of views. And then you got the Finger Family song where people in India started making these absolutely insane videos, the most famous of which was Hitler with a woman's body in a bikini doing Tai Chi with the Incredible Hulk while an Indian family sang the song Finger Family. This was the algorithmic chaos. It wasn't intentionally done. So when I see problems like this, and this is causing psychological disorders in children, because this is not reality, where we end up in 10 years, things are starting to get a bit crazier as these kids are growing up. The algorithmic problems we saw with the prominence, with the pushing of wokeness and other leftist ideas was corrupting a generation. We were largely defeating that. And I felt very optimistic, especially now with Mark Zuckerberg apologizing, with Elon Musk buying X. Now we have TikTok, which is unaccountable and doing the exact same thing. And we have conservatives cheering for TikTok to remain able to continue doing what we have been fighting for nearly a decade.
This ties in. This is what I've been thinking and wanting to say for about 20 minutes now. Matt, you brought up interesting. People getting embedded in the machine, children especially, like this is their life. I am in the machine. I'm concerned that humans are evolving and that we will, if this continues, evolve into two different species. Literally, a technocratic, like a cyborg human that is fully reliant on this, that has the AI doing its thinking for it, becomes a hive mind, and literally that there will be a war between these species like Neanderthal and hominid, Homo sapien. Like, you can't have two alpha species on the planet.
All right. Well, first I'll pause you because you have made tremendous leaps.
It's a more general look at the danger of children being embedded in the tech.
Getting to two species and then getting to the war between them is very far in the future.
Yeah, I'm nipping it in the bud.
So we do have to go to Super Chats, though. We're way behind. So smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Become a member over at timcast.com. We have an uncensored conversation with Angela earlier. We recorded before the show because we have time constraints here where we are. But it was an interesting conversation about Ross Ulbricht, your meeting with Donald Trump. So if you want to watch that, it's on timcast.com. It should be up right now, and it's very fascinating. And you'll get access to our Discord community, over 20,000 people, probably more at this point, all hanging out, pre-shows, after shows. There's a litany of community and content that's being produced there, and they want to be friends with you. But let's read your Super Chats. Alpha Turkey says, Tim, do you still stand that Trump will be a marginally good president or be far better than the first term? Also, welcome, Matt. I stand corrected. I said Trump would be a marginally good president like he was in his first term. He'll get another chance to do so, but in these past few days, The dude walked right up and hit a grand slam. So I'm much, much more optimistic. And I would change my statement to say, I believe Trump is going to be the greatest president of my lifetime. He already is. But I will say that it's a low bar. It's practically on the ground, as it were. But Trump is going to be an absolutely great president who's already done tremendous things. I'm curious if you guys agree.
I'm skeptical of Project Stargate and building a digital god with the $500 billion shrine to AI that all those companies are putting together that he announced yesterday. That's the one thing. I love everything else, but that is concerning to me.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of Stargate and working with OpenAI after the whistleblower stuff has come out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there's some concerning things there.
Don't even talk about that anymore.
I mean, I feel like aside from that, we have a huge upward trajectory, and the vibe shift in the United States is amazing. Yeah, and I feel really good since the inauguration.
I kind of echo the feeling about OpenAI. I am concerned about Sam Altman. I don't think that he's a stand-up guy. But that being said, people that are concerned about AI overall, I mean, look, if the United States doesn't do it, China or another country is going to.
I get it. Just because it's inevitable doesn't mean it's good.
Well, no,
and it's going to replace humans.
I disagree with that. But
it'll happen soon.
I don't believe that it's going to replace humans. But I do think that, like, if you allow, like, if we don't have if we're not cutting edge on AI, then you're going to fall behind, and then, you know, a country like China that is on the rise can use the incredible benefits that AI will bring to a marketplace and can overtake a country like the United States.
And they're selling Stargate as these beautiful benefits, so the same way Elon sells Neuralink, which the short-term benefits are beautiful, like cure these different diseases. You know, OpenAI, they're saying they're going to cure cancer, but they're going to build a giant surveillance state apparatus that'll be way worse than anything we could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Predictive programming, like programmatic policing, all these things are going to be very ugly very soon.
Through the Stargate program right now, its point is it will map your personal genome and then craft medicine that's directly tailored to your body through the mRNA
medicine. And
I think mRNA's got really vilified over the last 5 years because of a lot of the mandates of the vaccines and things that the mRNA was new. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It could be extremely valuable but you are right about it tailoring and mapping your genetics and having access to it, which could also create bioweapons, particularly against your genetics.
You know, we'll just try to move on and get some more super chats. We got this from SM69. It says, in December, the NSA renamed their DEI department to EEOD. They just changed the name again to EEOA. Their webpage is still up and lists all of Biden's woke EOs and NSA's woke internal policies as operating guidance. The page is hosted on an internal network inaccessible to the public. That's creepy. That's what I was referring to earlier, though, that they're trying to rename these departments to avoid getting terminated.
Oh, time to fire him.
Yeah.
Kash Patel said, there's a way to fire him. You just have to work harder, and you just have to do it. Look up, ask them, what do you do? If they can't answer you in 8 seconds, fired.
These guys should have been confirmed already.
For sure.
Yeah.
Who, Kash?
All of them.
Oh, yes. And everybody needs to go and call and lobby your senators in particular, especially if you're in Maine or Alaska. Tell your senator that you want them to vote for Kash Patel.
They're dragging their feet. All right, Jason says, I work in DOD public affairs. We scrubbed our websites of all the DEI nonsense today. It felt good, like smashing the printer in Office Space.
Oh, so nice.
I hear that. Suave Bro says, Gun Owners of America posted on X that the ATF DEI officer is now the executive officer. That's how they will keep it around to get around it. We did bring that up.
Well, I mean, they're going to try to do that kind of stuff. But
that's okay.
But thankfully, because of platforms like X and people that are looking to facilitate the change, these things are going to be brought to the attention of the the people in charge, and hopefully they'll be able to make adjustments and actually push to get these people fired.
We'll find them
for trying to hide.
We'll find them and we'll say, like, good job on trying to hide that. Best of luck in the private sector and see you later. Mm-hmm. Thanks for making my day more entertaining, and you're out.
Tyler Bratton says the Chicken Amendment is already covered under one of the greatest amendments, the 9th Amendment, which states the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Wrong, I say. So the purpose there is that just because we enshrine some rights doesn't mean other rights are not, non-existent or whatever. The problem is we do need to write down the things that we want to be upheld because there are many states that ban chicken ownership. And it was funny because I was talking with Thomas Massey. I don't know if he mentioned this on the show. I think it was before the show, perhaps. We were talking about an amendment for the right to grow your own food and be secure in your ability to eat and grow healthy food and things like this. Because he has an Amish raw milk supplier, I guess he was talking about. And my joke was that the chicken amendment, we wrote it up to be silly and to be in the style of how they would have written it a long time ago in reflecting the Second Amendment, which is the joke, but that it would be interpreted to mean more than chickens. That is, individuals should have the right to grow their own food and consume as they see fit without government interference. That would need to be codified because that is infringed upon every single day in this country.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big raw milk fan. I don't have chickens yet, but
I'm quite.
How are you on raw milk these days?
I'm still against it.
I'm with Matt on this one.
My toddler.
I like my milk without bacteria.
No,
it's good bacteria, man.
we like it. my toddler and I both chug raw milk. Very nourishing.
All three of my kids and us, we've been doing it for 10 years.
If I'm getting milk, I always say hold the E. coli. So I don't. So it's.
Dude, you got to embrace the E. coli.
There's different types of E. coli.
But Matt, do you believe that it should be illegal to buy raw milk?
Illegal, and anyone who has it should be shot on the spot.
Oh no.
No, I don't. No, I don't think it should be illegal. If you want to consume cow feces, I think you should have the right to do so.
Have you tried it?
But I did. I was
really good.
I
mean,
did
what
try
about
it.
sushi?
It is good.
And
it is good.
it's like
I was on Alex Clark's podcast, and she gave me raw milk
and made you watch anime
and dare.
no, we don't do
It's
that.
a torture chamber.
We don't do that. We don't do that. We got standards.
I drank it. I could feel my throat closing up. It was a near death experience.
Yeah, it might have been killing a lot of the bad stuff on you. I don't know.
We have a lot of farms out by us, and they have to sell it as pet milk, which literally says not for human consumption, and everybody knows exactly what it is. But I'm actually with Matt. I'm not a big raw milk person. I don't like the generic store-bought plastic stuff. I like getting good organic milk, but pasteurized.
I mean, the truth is, I don't drink milk at all because I'm not 8. You know. Someone said something to me as.
But what if you're eating peanut butter?
I'm breastfeeding, so I'm always
there's
chugging.
that. So I think the more interesting contrarian view on milk is what someone told me that really humans shouldn't be drinking cow's milk at all.
God gave us dominion over this earth. That includes cow milk.
Well, in no other this is not my argument. I'm just testing the water. But in no other species do they drink. No other mammal drinks milk past childhood, and no other mammal drinks the milk of another.
Species.
We're elevated.
They also don't have philosophy
That's not true.
departments.
That's not true. Animals will drink other animals' milk. They just don't harvest it and then drink. You know what I mean? Bring it to their families
because they're not smart enough.
Well. That's what this guy said. I thought it was an interesting contrarian milk
That's
view.
a vegan argument is what that is. That is a hardcore vegan.
All you got to do is scroll Instagram long enough.
I'm accidentally a vegan.
All you got to do is scroll Instagram long enough and you will find one of these stories where it's like a mama cat adopted an orphaned mammal of some sort and things like this. And
yeah, but the adult animal of that species doesn't drink milk.
Oh, that's true. That is totally true.
They evolved to drinking their blood and eating their meat.
But to be fair, humans eat a lot of things
they do here in DC.
like that animals would never go near,
Like cheesecake?
Well, I mean, we've invented weird, disgusting chemical additives to foods.
Red dye number 4?
Put cheesecake down in front of your dog and tell me your dog doesn't eat cheesecake.
Is the idea about raw milk that it's more prone to getting in overly bacterified?
The deal with raw milk is you don't want raw milk from some gross city factory farm. You want it only from a place that's clean, which is how people used to consume milk. Pasteurization happened once factory farming happened. And I'm not trashing factory farming. I'm just saying when you cram a bunch of animals together like that, you have to be extra clean because things get kind of nasty.
But I would argue that there's no such thing as a clean farm. I mean, there's animal shit all over the place.
Well, there's different definitions of clean.
I support like stem cell meat growth because you're bypassing all the feces going through that cow. You don't have to eat the garbage crap.
I'll pass on that, but I love that for you.
All right, let's grab this one from Hitman Zarelli. Says Lana Del Rey is honestly in my top 5 artists. Nice. Dean Martin, Molchat Doma, Big Al Downing, Lana Del Rey, Selena. Wow. Listen to Brooklyn Girl, West Coast, Salvatore, Diet Dew Mountain. Diet Dew? Mountain Phil, is that what it is? Will know what I'm talking Phil will know what I'm talking about. Diet Dew Mountain, okay. There's no commas, so I was trying to figure out what you're saying.
Diet Dew Mountain. Are you familiar with that?
No, not at all.
Lana Del Rey's cover of Country Roads is incredible.
Lana
Is it
Del
really?
Rey is incredible.
It's really good.
I think she's good. I'm not a fan, but just because I don't like her music doesn't mean I think it's bad.
I thought I heard video
It's just not for
games.
me.
I thought it was long, slow, and boring, but I mean, it was kind of good.
I'm offended by video games because it's a really good melodic song with the worst lyrics imaginable. If you know the song.
I don't know the song, no.
Okay, so it's like
like
this
a first
really
hit.
great melody that's very heartfelt, and the lyrics are like it's you, it's all for you. But she's actually singing about just putting on a skimpy outfit while her boyfriend drinks and plays video games, and she goes down on him. And I'm like, if she actually wrote like my husband came back from war and I was longing for him and I was scared and terrified. I've done all of this for you. Like I'd be like, wow, that's such an amazing song.
Who is this? Lana Del Rey we're talking about?
Yeah.
Isn't she married the alligator guy?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, good for her. Good for her.
I don't know who that is. Who's the alligator guy?
He's an alligator.
She married just some normal dude that
Alligator
A
tours.
swamp tour guide.
Yeah.
swamp tour guide.
An airboat.
Oh,
I got to be honest. He's a normal dude. I mean, that sounds like the coolest job ever.
True.
Like driving around.
Well, I mean, normal dude as in not a Hollywood guy.
Yeah.
Not a Hollywood weirdo.
Was it Florida or Louisiana? It's very Florida man vibes.
It
Wherever
is Florida
he's
Man vibes.
from.
I don't know where he's from.
I mean, riding around on what are those things called?
Airboats.
Airboats.
Yeah.
Chasing alligator.
That with those big fans on the back.
That's
like,
actually
riding down the
honestly
bayou?
that was my second choice after podcaster.
It's the American Dream.
I write.
You could podcast from the boat.
I actually stay up at night staring at the ceiling, thinking about what could have been. All right, let's. Donna Linnae says, the left sees criminals as victims of society. Had they not been treated unfairly by society, they wouldn't be committing crimes. I know that's how we logically view it, but I largely think they are just NPCs that simply hate you. We often try to apply logic to their actions to understand it, but sometimes there is no logic to be applied. They are simply contrarians who say right-wing bad, and whatever you are for, they're against.
There are like instances where someone's forced into committing a crime to survive. I mean, that does happen, but I don't think that's generally
Explain.
the problem.
That's the
with crime.
minority.
Like,
What's
the
an
community
example?
gets racist, and they're like, "Don't sell him any products," and he's like, can't get food anywhere, and
Do
he's
you
like,
believe that happens?
"I'm sure in the world that kind of thing can happen."
In
wait.
world history, you have
Throughout
crimes
world
of
history,
survival,
yes.
but
Do you-
which
in
is
the
correct.
United States,
yeah.
do you believe that happens?
I disagree.
I'm not sure.
I understand the point you're making, but it is still a choice. You're not being forced into it.
But even
Well,
evil
it's-
laws.
I'll say so. If I actually had if I was starving and my children were starving, and someone had food, and I went up and asked them for the food, and they wouldn't give me any, I would then steal it from them. I would rob them and take the food. In order
Like
to
a good dad,
right,
caring
so
for
that
the
my
ones
child will survive. Like
closest to
I
you.
care more about my kid surviving than I do about the law.
And then,
But that scenario is not happening in
It's
modern
so-
America.
but
so
my
rare.
point is just that I understand you feel forced to do so because you have a great calling to protect your children, but it's still a choice,
yeah, it's a choice. Yeah.
right? Because like you could literally say, we're going to go in the woods and rough it and forage and hunt and figure it out. The idea that it's crazy to me that humans throughout all of history figured it out. But now with civilization, we have this scenario where it's like, I had no choice but to rob the marketplace.
Well, we forgot how to figure it out. That's a lost art right there.
perhaps.
I mean, I think though, like when it comes to criminals, I think that we do tend to have more compassion for people who are younger. We feel that their minds are not fully developed. They were in bad situations with their parents. We have more compassion for younger people. We don't have a lot of compassion for 8-time felons who are out murdering people to the point that it becomes like a sick meme. So, that's a big, I think, distinction between people who are diehard progressives and everyone else.
All right. Ted Thornton says Americans until Gen Z and Alpha have had Judeo-Christian morals as a foundation. America is a Christian nation. The overwhelming, even among liberals, secular liberals in the 90s and millennials today, they don't know it, but they have Judeo-Christian moral foundations. Bill Maher, who is the host of Religulous, has Christian moral foundations. And I think I don't know to what extent he's actually researched his values and where they come from, but they come from the Christian moral tradition. The easiest way to understand it is go to any Eastern Hemisphere country and ask them why they don't have the Fifth Amendment, why they don't have speedy trials, why they don't have a right to confront their
Charity,
accusers.
501c3s. Charity is a Catholic virtue. It's the opposite of greed, and
Do you know
it's,
why
it's
we have-
codified into law that it's not taxable
And do you know why we have 501c3s?
because of
They are
Catholic.
tax code
Christian
versions
virtue.
of the church. Churches are tax exempt, We are allowed to see what they do with their funds, and they can't engage in politics. And when these liberals say, wow, these churches shouldn't be allowed to do this, that, or otherwise, I'm like, okay, if you want to ban that and say they shouldn't, if you want to say churches shouldn't be tax exempt, because that was a big argument liberals were putting forth for a while, I'll say totally correct. And we'll get rid of 501c3s and at the same time.
I could see like the charitable aspects of churches being tax-free, but other aspects of the churches being taxed. That's
what?
Tithing. I don't know. Do they take money from
literally how
people?
they make money?
Income.
Well, you should be able to donate through their 501c3 then, or something.
So it's tithing.
I don't know. Tithing is, I think it's different.
What's
you go
the
in,
part that should be taxed? What's the action they take that should be taxed?
You know, that's a good question because I don't know all of the ways that churches make money. Does Joel Osteen get ad revenue when he?
Well, not everyone's Joel Osteen.
But does he get ad revenue when he does his TV show? Because that should be taxed.
Interesting.
Sponsorships.
So, but Joel,
I disagree.
I think that
He's a bad
churches
example.
churches like Joel Osteen's church. Those are like
Those
a
are
handful of churches,
giant
and there
mega-
are millions of
Like
churches
I
across
grew
the
up
country.
with
you
my
know?
dad as a pastor, and we had we were lower middle income. It was a small church.
Yeah,
Well-
the vast majority of churches are not rolling in cash. Although we would agree on this. I think I would just say get rid of all income taxes.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes,
I
yes,
heard
yes.
Trump
There you
is
go.
tending that. I don't know if it was fake news. Did you see that?
I don't think that's going to happen.
It would
But
take
that
him
would
Congress.
be. He would automatically go down as the greatest president in America.
Yeah, that's
But
a
honestly, if he did
beautiful
that-
idea.
Yeah.
Well, my friends, it's been amazing, but as I mentioned, this is we have a hard stop. We are going to be heading back to our home studios, our last day in DC. So thank you all so much for being members. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know, and I mean that literally. It's not just a motto. Word of mouth really does help out, and that's how we've actually been so successful. So thank you all so much, and become members at timcast.com. We've got the uncensored pre-show with Angela McArdle talking about how she met Trump and the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht and what Trump represents. And we talk a bit about libertarians. It's a good fun. And of course, you get access to our Discord server where there's tens of thousands of people that are asking why you don't want to be their friends. So you need to go sign up and hang out with everybody and have a good time. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Matt, do you want to shout anything out?
Well, I've got my 2 movies that are on dailywire.com. Am I Racist is the latest one and doing really well on the platform. So go to dailywire.com, become a member.
Masterpiece. 10 out of 10. It is a resurgence of comedy films that we have not seen in decades because they've all become trash.
Was it a wig? Was it with the top knot? I can't still.
Oh, it was a wig.
Oh God, so good.
A nice wig.
There's a
Very
Matt
nice
Walsh fight scene. I recommend it. It was really good.
It's a real action choreography.
I was in a packed theater and everybody couldn't stop laughing. Really, really good stuff.
Oh, that's some balls, brother. That's awesome, man.
Angela.
That's like full Borat. Anyway, I'm fanboying a little.
If you are interested in the Libertarian Party, if you're interested in preserving the work that I've done, if you are passionate about Ross Ulbricht's liberation from prison, if you are big on Bitcoin, if you hate the Federal Reserve, if you like the work I've done and you want me to be able to keep doing it and making the Libertarian Party based, please donate. Please show your appreciation for the work I've done to get Ross freed by donating at lp.org. We need the support right now. We need your help to keep going. I will also have a tell-all book coming out soon. And you can follow me on Twitter at Angela for LNC Chair.
Sweet. You can follow me online at Shane Cashman, and I host Inverted World Live every Sunday. We are anxiously awaiting the JFK paper release and the drone release. I like all those things. We'll be going over them on the show as soon as they come out. Ian?
Yeah, Matt Walsh blog on Twitter. If you want to follow Matt on Twitter, follow him there.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh yeah, baby. I'm at Ian Crossland and follow me as well. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me down here, Tim. Phil, good to see you. Everybody, follow everybody here.
Just so everyone knows, Angela is the most effective LP chair possibly in history. She's done more for the party and more for America than any other LP chair ever at all.
And I want to stress this.
Thank you.
Played a big role in getting Trump elected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That commitment to pardon Ross Ulbricht may have generated a decent, solid percentage point more of votes for Trump.
Got the Bitcoin community off the couch too. It was not a debate between Trump and Harris. It was a debate between Trump and not voting, and that
Yes.
energized that base.
Yeah.
So Phil, just
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. You can subscribe to my page there. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. New record drops January 31st. It's called Anti-Fragile. If you want to check out a few songs, you can check out Forever Cold, Let You Go, No Tomorrow, and Divine. They're available on YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. Go to Spotify right now and pre-save. And don't forget, the left lane is for crime.
we will see you all tomorrow morning. We're back. YouTube.com/TimcastNews. Subscribe now, and we'll see you all there.